Previous guest writes our first question of an episode.
Okay.
You've got the envelope. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, let's do it. First question. All right, here we go. Oops, sorry about that. How was the initial transition from military or law enforcement back to a regular life? What was the biggest challenge? Great question. Interesting. It's a great question. I've been retired now for about 5 years from the Navy. So this was the military side of that race for me. But let's see. I retired in July of 2021. And I was coming off a 18 months of unaccompanied Middle Eastern tour. I was in Bahrain. So I was there for full on from October of 2019, and I didn't come home back again until April of 21. Now, that was COVID year. Remember, 2020 was COVID year, so I couldn't even fly back if I wanted to fly back. Because,
so is that what extended your deployment?
Well, no, it was 18 months already orders to go there. My wife and children remained home. But I took the orders under the impression that I'd be able to come home at some point in time to see my family. And unfortunately, COVID hit, and we abide by the kingdom rules, and the kingdom rules were nobody flies. In military, any asset military really there, you couldn't fly if somebody died in your family, like getting them back home during that COVID year. It was quite a hurdle to get over. So in my case, I didn't get to come home for over a year. So all of that stress and chaos that kind of happened during that COVID year, I was in the Middle East for it. I was never in the States one time for it at all. So my wife kind of had to endure all that on her own, with just 3 kids by herself and people around her.
How did the Middle East handle COVID? Like when you were off base?
Man, so it was wild. It was a wild trip. So they shut down everything, right? Like everything shut down. The entire city shut down. And I was actually on kind of the prevention, mitigation, COVID team for the entire base, right? So I was, where I was at in charge of kind of the warships type stuff. I was, very involved in what was happening over the base, but the whole country, they shut everything down. And it was very eerie, Paul. They had taken buildings that were like previous hotels and turned them into holding facilities. And everybody's in biochem suits and they're walking around with masks. And if you were active duty military or local national, it didn't matter. If you tested positive for coronavirus, you went to this holding facility and you were there 10 days mandatory.
Oh, wow.
And there's a big, huge the tracking system was massive. Like we had to cover the entire base, everybody, security forces, even some family personnel. I mean, we had to cover the shipboard forces, everything. And, but in the end, we followed the host country rules. And the host country rules were when you test positive, you go into a holding facility. If you were, they eventually got to a point where you were just isolated to your flat, where you live. Because I don't know if you're familiar with kind of the base in Bahrain, but there isn't, the service members that are on board base there, they don't live on base. They live out in hotels or, they call them flats there, right? Real nice. We get taken care of. It's definitely not a bad gig when you look at it from that aspect, But so they would isolate you, your isolation, and people had to wear masks outside. Like if you didn't, you were ticketed on the spot.
Oh, wow.
Like police would fine you and you were expected to pay the fine on the spot when they stopped you for not wearing a mask. So it was, and no contact. I mean, I imagine it was similar to what was happening here, and everybody just kind of hunkered down and didn't do anything back and forth between base. I rode a bike. I lived close enough that I could just ride a bicycle every day to base. So I would and I rode it with a mask on, which is wild, man. Like, right. Like, talk about, what was that era or that trend of like that, the mask and training, right? Like the oxygen deprivation training, right? Like this is what you literally had to train that way in Bahrain an entire year, anywhere in gyms, all the gyms for the hotels or anything public was all shut down. Grocery stores, the only things that remained open. Banks, I think, were the only things. But like all the nightclubs, all the places, the lounges, all the things, everything was shut down. Yeah, it was hectic. But anyways,
what was your rate and your rank? What was your rating?
so I was a hospital corpsman.
Okay.
I was a corpsman, and I was a chief petty officer, E7 on the ranks. So anyway, so back to the question here, though. I was away for so long. So much had happened. When I came home, this was like the ultimate kind of reintegration, really drills. And I was retired, and now I'm no longer Chief Resop anymore. Right now, I'm not. That didn't come with me anymore. I came home, and I'm my kids and my wife, and I have to reintegrate back to normal, and that was an incredibly difficult transition. Like that was just obviously life went on without me, right? And you have to accept that, right? When you go away for, I think I ended up doing like 8 or 9 deployments or something like that in the Navy, right? 4 of them with family. So I kind of understood like life being lived at home without us, and trying to express any control over that is just problematic every time, right? So, but now I was home, and I was just, I had this vision of kind of like how things were going to kind of be ran, and maybe my wife didn't necessarily see the same thing I saw, right? And so there was conflict there. There was conflict. My kids were used to, kind of me being away and things. And when you're dad and you're coming home, you want to be like, I'm home, and everybody comes in, and, it's just open arms, and you're right back integrated back. But it doesn't, anybody that's been through that before, they understand it doesn't necessarily work that way, right? When you've been gone for that long. And then to come back, it can be a challenge. So communication was difficult. I mean, it was just, I think with my family and my wife were probably the biggest challenge that we faced. Later on, things happened that made it even more of a challenge. And we can talk about that later and more. But my daughter, Lily, she was just 3 at the time, was diagnosed with leukemia, diagnosed with cancer, about 6 months after I retired. And so, man, that was, now I'm still trying to figure things out with my family, right? With the family, just how to live again. And I have a new career now, right? I have a job right away. Literally the day I retired, the next day I was already working a new job, right? And maybe I could have done that better. Now looking back, parts of me think that I probably should have taken a break, right? I've had a lot of people tell me, like, dude, that break is important. And I didn't do that. I just went straight from 100 miles an hour in the Navy to now 100 miles an hour in my new career. So nothing ever stopped, right? And then this cancer thing came, right? And man, that was, now trying to navigate through that was a bigger challenge. So I was kind of faced with more than, everybody's kind of faced with something. I don't think that I had an issue with like the uniform being off anymore.
When you look forward to that first cup of coffee, as soon as that morning alarm goes off, then Blue Line Roasting is the choice for you. They're a Tennessee-based law enforcement-owned company. They're roasting small batches of premium coffee, fresh, within 48 hours of your ordering, and ship fast so it doesn't sit around getting stale. From Patriot, their light roast, to Failure Drill, their dark roast. They've got something that fits whatever you prefer. Whole bean or ground, it's your call. But Blue Line Roasting is more than just good coffee. A portion of every purchase goes to support law enforcement families who are dealing with line of duty injury or loss. So your morning routine becomes something bigger. Great coffee and real impact. Grab a single bag, try a sampler, or set up a subscription so you're never caught without it. Shipping is always free. And for the listeners of this podcast, use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your order. Head on over to bluelineroasting.com and make your morning count.
Paul, between you, I love being a dad more than anything on earth. Like I truly do. And so when I feel like the moment I retired, I was filling that role. I knew what my new role was. I knew what my new calling was, and that was to be a father, right? And that was, my sons were 6 and 7, and my daughter was 3 when I retired, right? So what prime years to be present, right? I mean, the same story we've heard every most service members that have families miss the prime, all those prime years, those formidable years of their children's lives. And then they retire and their kids are all grown up and they're like, man, just kind of wish I could go back and get that again, because they lost all that. For me, just very fortunate that I waited until later in my career to very later, like 15, 16 years in before I got married and began to have children. And so, I was excited. Like it was exciting. It was like chief of the family kind of, but I didn't need that title anymore. My new title, I just walked right into was dad, you know what I mean? And looking back though, man, I should have been thinking husband and dad, like, because I was so focused on that. I think that my wife, she deserves so much. And, I definitely could have done that better. I learned a lot of things over the last couple of years about how I approached, what needed my attention the most when I retired. What needed my attention the most was not just my children. It was my wife as well. And she had sacrificed a lot and I wasn't seeing that. I was just seeing that my kids did. And, looking back on those things, that's one thing. I'm better now. 5 years later, right? But boy, let me tell you, I think, and I think this is a common story. I think it is a common story that families, especially if you've been gone, like out of pocket away, right? And now, boom, you're home, and boom, I got a job. Like, I think my wife was a bit upset that I was away so much for my new job, right? My new job required me. I think she wanted me to take a break, right? But we were concerned about finances. You're concerned about, oh no, you're not getting, all the normal concerns I think that any family has, right? And this new job had me traveling. It had me moving around. It had me, delivering. It was an incredible company to work for, a human performance company, veteran-owned, special operators. The best trainers in the country. We're going around teaching firefighters, police, all the tactical athletes out there, teaching them human performance techniques, right? Like holistically teaching them. And I got to be a part of that, man. And it was fantastic. I was surrounded by superstars everywhere I went. And so I just truly felt like this was just a perfect place to be. But in the meantime, my family and my wife were still kind of looming in the back and needing me. I just went from one team to a new team, right?
Right.
And what I should have done was really just stop and take a look at the family team. And that's what I needed to do because they were so young. My kids are not grown. Right, like we're in the form years right now, the most, some of the most important years of their lives. I really look back and, so I encourage people, I don't know, everybody has their own path,
Well, that's the thing, and something that you did, which positive, negative, whatever you want to look at it, waiting until later in your careers, because so many, especially veterans, who get married young, have kids young, and then spend 20 years deployed most of the time. When they pop out at the other end and they retire, their kids are 15, 16 years old, and they're almost in their own lives, per se, grown and doing their own thing that, oddly enough, you're kind of like, hey, what about me, Dad? Hey, you've been gone for 20 years, so we're doing our own thing.
Yeah.
So you kind of came into it at, I'll say, the right time.
I did. And that was deliberate too, all by the way. Like my first deployment overseas was in 1998, end of 1998. I was with the Marine Corps side of the house. I don't know if you're familiar with the Marine Corps. They don't have their own medicine. They use Navy medicine. They use
Correct.
Hospital Corpsman, right? And which by far is just some of the grandest and greatest duty there is on the planet is being a doc with the Marine Corps. And I was with the heart and soul of the Marine Corps, the grunts, man. I was with, and we're on our first deployment. We're headed out to Japan, Okinawa, Japan, Oki, 1999. And this is old school now. Like this is like the buses are lined up on the grinder on the parking lot, and sea bags are perfectly aligned in line. Each squad is set up. They're lined up, and families are coming to say goodbye right there on the parking lot. I mean, this is the stuff you see in like the old movies, right? Like I got to experience this, but for me, I was single. I was 19-year-old kid, just ready to go do everything on the planet, and so I just, go straight to the front of the line and sea bag on, and I'm sitting on the bus, and I'm the only one on the bus. I'll never forget it, this experience, because I'm sitting there, and forgive me if I get emotional, because it's still, to this day, I think about this moment, and it was like, I sat there, and I watched all these families and all these fathers have to say goodbye to their children and to their wives, and it was, oh my goodness gracious, it was so emotional to watch. I didn't know anything about being a family or dad, you know. I'm just, you know, navigating my brand new sailor in the Navy, doing awesome stuff. And now I'm watching these children like cry and so sad. The amount of sadness that was happening right there. And I saw it with every single family that I saw. It was happening. And I vowed to myself right then and there, boy, I am not going down this road. I will wait. I am going to do everything that it is that I want to do. That was my goal, was to do every single thing I can possibly do that I want to do, and not have to worry about that goodbye. That goodbye to me was terrifying. Like, even at 19, I said, I never want to experience that in my life. And,
so taking you then backwards, let's talk about that 19-year-old kid who ultimately ended up in the Navy. Where are you from? Where's hometown? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
Yes. Born and raised like inside Portland, Oregon. Not, you know, some people from Oregon will, oh yeah, I grew up in Portland, but they grew up in Gresham, or they grew up in a city that's kind of outlying to Portland. Man, I grew up right there in Southeast Portland.
What did mom and dad do?
Mom and dad. So, you know, that's kind of a hectic story too, a little bit. Mom and dad, let's see, I didn't really know my biological father, right? So that, you know, that was, my mom had me when she was very young. She was like 18, 19, had me. And, you know, life was different at that point in time, you know,
right.
Things and you know, the name that was on my birth certificate, I didn't know who that was, right? My mom had been with, you know, other people between then and there that I kind of just would latch onto, but I didn't really have a father figure kind of leading up to, I would say they were there, but not like a real father figure. You know,
do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a sister, right? And so I was taking care of my sister at a very, very young age, you know, at a very, very young age, 7, 8-year-old type age, taking care of my little sister. And then my mother, she met my dad, that I consider my real dad. She met him when I was around 7 years old. Just the most amazing, took us out of the tough life that we were currently living, because it wasn't all real nice up to that point. You know, right. It was pretty challenging, but my mom was facing a lot then. And then he came in, and he was just an angel, man. He really showed me what a father is and what a father's supposed to be. My little brother was born 10 years later. You know, I'm 10 years older than he is. But man, I grew up in Portland.
What took up your time? What'd you like doing?
I was a good kid, man. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I wasn't really a troublemaker, to be honest. I had a good group of friends. Basketball was like my passion, you know. Running, anything athletic, anything sports. I just grew up kind of just, you know, that 80s, like, you know, the Van Damme movies. I ain't gonna lie, like Bloodsport, all those, like Dolph Lundgren, all these dudes, you know, when I was a kid that was like obsessed with Rambo, obsessed with, you know, all the Van Damme movies, you know, I love all these movies. And so in my brain, I was always, you know, bow and arrow. I'd be making bows and arrows. I was making knives out of, you know, wood or something. I was always kind of in this like survival kind of setting that I just put myself in when I, you know, imagine myself kind of in those movies, you know what I mean? And my dad, same way. We'd watch them together, you know. My dad looked like a pirate, I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, he literally had one eye. He was a foundry worker, welder, had a major accident where his eyeball actually got like burnt up, and rather than have a glass eye, he wore an eye patch. Like, so he wore an eye patch, man. Like, he was a freaking stinking pirate, dude. And tatted up, you know, he had tattoos and stuff. Big fella, man. But and so I kind of grew up this way, you know, basketball. My mom had girls dude, weren't like a factor for me. Like, and this was truly my mom, man, if she did it anything right, what she did right was just instill such a level of fear in me when it came to girls. Like, she was like, my mom was just,
they're going to screw your life up.
They're just going to mess it up. They're just going to like, there's nothing that's going to come from this. Any girlfriend, all that stuff. She's like, Ramone, they're just going to mess up everything that is that you want to do. And so I love my mom. I was, me and my mom had been through the thick of it all, and I listened to her, and I did listen to her, man. I think I had a girlfriend like in 7th grade and maybe freshman year. And that's it, man. I wasn't interested in chasing any of that stuff. I was just having fun doing the things that, I love to do. My bicycle, I'd ride my bike everywhere. This was a time when it was cool, dude. Like you could be in Southeast Portland, and I would ride my bike 20 miles to Northeast Portland, to the entire, over every bridge, over all these things, go so far away. I had my first job was a busboy at a restaurant called Seafood Mama's. It sounds hilarious, but this place was 25 miles away. Like, this place was it took me 30 minutes by bike ride to get there. Right. And I'm just a young kid, and I worked hard. My uncle was a general contractor, and he ran like apartment complexes, and he was in charge of a lot. And my dad was like, go work with him, and I went and I worked. So I was a young man, 9 years old, 10 years old, shagging wrenches, shagging screwdrivers, carrying concrete bags up hills, like anything that my uncle Eddie needed me to do. And he was paying me $5 an hour. And I loved it. I was king of the world, man. I was able to buy my first Nintendo, dude. Like, cause my mom wasn't going to buy it, right? $99.99. That's how much it costs, right? Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt. They're the only 2 games you got, but I wanted it so bad. And my mom was unable to pay for it. She's like, you're going to have to save your money. And I worked an entire summer with that being the primary goal for the end of the summer. And I did it. I saved, $100 I saved at that point in time, and was able to buy my own Nintendo and do my thing, and, so
it's crazy though. And I'm sure your mom wasn't just saying this.
Yeah.
Maybe she was, maybe she could have afforded it, but it was more of, you're going to learn to earn it.
Sure.
When was the last time you told one of your kids, hey, you're going to work for something before you get it?
Oh, every day. I do it every day. Yeah. I make them work. If there's anything that I think now, being a dad, like I really dissected. I think as I got older, I think there's benefit to being a father older,
Mm-hmm.
You look, maybe I'm not like everyone else, but I look at the layers of how things happened in my past. And when I'm a young man, you don't look at these things. You just go get after it, and now I think I have the ability to kind of really just step back, detach a bit, right? And look at like things that maybe my parents did and see where there was benefit and where there was meaning. Mm-hmm. And maybe they're just being, parents, right? And back in those days, just being tough parents or whatever, right? Generation X parents, right? Or, but unfortunately, my dad's not here anymore. He did pass away, in 2011, but I think about him a lot, and I think about the things that they put me through. And what was the purpose without him being here? What was the purpose? What was the thing that my dad was trying to achieve within me? Right.
Well, at the end of the day, it made all of us better.
Yeah.
And it's weird when you think about it in the sense that we were less connected back then in the sense of social media and all that, phones. But we as kids were further away from home.
Yeah.
Today, kids are so connected and their parents are so connected to their kids, yet few kids get probably more than a mile, maybe 2 from their home.
For sure.
By themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely right, man. Absolutely right. I think one of the biggest things, like I wasn't, I played basketball, but I played for like the Boys and Girls Club teams and stuff. I wasn't
varsity high school.
No. I think I tried out for the teams or whatever. For whatever reason, I didn't make them. Maybe I sucked or whatever. I thought I'd crush it in the Boys and Girls Club league, right? But my parents just didn't. They weren't that culture. They weren't that sports culture type families, right? And we see those.
It was about working.
Right? It was working. My dad worked his tail off. My mom worked her tail off. She worked nights. She did all those things, and they didn't have time to they didn't want to go to practices and games. And so, I played basketball, but it was my friend's mom that would take me to the game or something. And it was cool. Like, and for me, I was perfectly cool with this. Like, I would have liked it if my parents were there a little bit more, right? But at the end of the day, dude, I was just there to go have fun with my friends and play some sports and do, competitive, learn some
I'm sure 95% of the time, whether it was practice or the game, you were more into what was going on in the field. You might have looked to the stands if your parents were there, but I
didn't need them to be there, to be honest with you. But one thing my dad was set on was like this adventure mindset. Man, he did this right. And this is what I've carried over the most to being a dad today is the need for like adventure, because true lessons. He would take me fishing. He'd take me camping. He'd take me out in the wilderness, and he'd talk to me and he'd teach me. And where I learned most about my dad, who he was like as a person, it came from the exposures to the outdoors, right? Just the new things, fishing for trout on a river with rapids, and I'm just this 8-year-old little kid, right, with a little leather jacket and a little fishing hat. And I'm standing on the rocks and I'm just trying to catch trout. I fall in like there's some big emergency, and my dad just snatches me out of the water, right? And I'm like, oh, and he's like, that was crazy, wasn't it? Like, yeah, okay, keep fishing. It was no big deal, Now you look at it like rapids. A little 8-year-old boy swim, like that's an emergency, right? Maybe we should do something about it. But my dad just snatched me out of the water and we continued on.
Don't step there again.
Don't do that again, right? And so, but I mean, I learned so much about I feel like life in general, not knowing that I was learning life lessons at that age, right? But man, and I love it to this day. I love being in the outdoors more than anything, right? And now I with my own kids, it's about sport. Sports culture is always looming, right? It's there, it's present. But for me, man, it's just, I just see so much benefit in that adventure. It's like, so this is what my responsibility to my children is to bring that every day. If I'm not taking them to baseball practice or anything, we didn't agree to do that, then it's my responsibility as a dad to get them out in the wilderness, get them fishing, get them somewhere in the back of a truck, for goodness sakes, right? Like not losing the things that are just, allowing them to just do things a little bit on their own, right? Like we were in Costco yesterday, man, and we're in the back over there. I don't know if you've been to the Marietta Costco, right? But in the very back by the fruit and stuff like that. And Julian's like, I got to go to the bathroom, Dad. I'm like, go, take him. And Ivan's got his eyes like, yeah. I'm like, take him. You can take him. You know where it's at. Both go and come back. Okay. Just something like that. But it was a kind of like okay, let's roll. And then they rolled out and they come right back and nothing's fine. Everything's fine. You know what I mean? Like, but just getting them to that uncomfortable space, treating them like going down a walking barefoot through a creek or something. We went to Sedona, right? And we found all these amazing like waters, and we did all these things, and they're going down, they're freaking out like, Dad, I'm like, it's okay. It's all, you don't need your Crocs on, dude. Take your Crocs off. I took them and I heaved them down the river, right? I don't know if we ended up finding them like a quarter mile down the water, I was like, just go and you're going to love it. And they did. And I mean, they thrived and they crushed it. And it was, so growing up, it was right. There was a lot of autonomy and freedom that our parents allowed us to have, there's growth in that, and so I did all those things. And so when it's time to graduate high school though, dude,
was college considered or even?
Not even considered. To me, I wasn't even, I didn't want to go to school anymore. Like when maybe this is, I don't know, probably a pretty common story for most men at this, or young kids at that time, but when I applied myself at school, I was really great at it. You know what I mean? I was really
When you applied yourself.
When I applied myself. But I was by no means a straight A, dude. I wasn't any, I just got done what needed to be done. I did it at a little higher level than most, but I was by no means just, I don't know, it's just the way I was when it came to schoolwork like that, right? So, definitely didn't see set on college at all. Like I didn't want to do that at all.
Were you already thinking the military when you?
So as I retired, or as I was getting out, my cousin approached me, and he was around my age, and he's like, dude, let's talk about the Navy. Have you ever thought about the Navy or anything, And at that point I hadn't.
Was he in the Navy?
No, he wanted to join. So the plan was for him and I to go to the Navy together because he's my cousin, but man, he was like if I had a brother, it was like him, and he was just, it's like, let's do it. So we went to the recruiting office, and all these things. And, that was hectic because in the middle of the, MEPS, or delayed entry program, you go in right away. And, I went skiing. I went downhill skiing on Mount Hood when I was 18, just graduated. And, I took a digger, man. I cried downhill, way too high fast, twisted up, and I broke my arm. Like I broke it bad. And I had to get like skied down the mountain, snowmobile down the mountain and things like that. And that was right in the middle of the delayed entry program. So everything got stalled out. I had to do like 12 weeks of recovery for that. But at this point, Paul, like I wanted to join the Navy. I was in. I was all in. I was ready to join. I was ready to be a corpsman. I wanted to be a doc. Like my dad's best friend. He also passed away, rest his soul. But he was a Vietnam Marine, right? And so when I told him I wanted to join the Navy, he's like, the instant response was like, what? Like, join the Marine Corps, right? And then I was like, but I think I want to be a corpsman. I think I want to be a doc. And his eyes lit up. And Mike was like, sit down with me right now. And my dad's sitting there with me, and see, my dad wanted to join the Navy, but he never could because flat feet. Remember, there was a time when if you were flat foot, you couldn't join. My dad fell into that time. So he had always had this affinity, this internal passion to want to join the Navy, but he just never did. So anything that Mike had to say about Vietnam or military, my dad just loved hearing these stories, right? And so he sat down with me and he told me the stories about his doc in Vietnam and just how badass this dude was. And he saved lives and the things that he did. I mean, and I'm just this 18-year-old impressionable, just not knowing a lot about the Navy, but hearing these stories, thinking, again, like putting myself in the old movies. I was doing it with Mike's stories. I was putting myself in that. I want to be that corpsman. That's the doc that I want to be. Right. And so I was sold. Mike was the stamp on it that really, and he supported me. My dad supported me. My mom did not. My mom didn't. Like probably most mothers, there's the fear that exists and looms over their child joining the military today. It's always been that way. I don't think that's ever going to change, and it won't, because it's motherly nature, right? It's the nurturing sense of a mom to always want to care for their children, and then to know that they're going to potentially go in harm's way.
Well, and I've said this multiple times. There was a different perspective, even you went in 98.
Mm-hmm.
So in 98, the first Gulf Wars ended.
Yeah.
So it wasn't full peacetime. It wasn't like when I came out of high school in 87. The people who had been serving up to that point, it was, there was nothing going on.
Yeah.
Grenada, maybe.
Right.
And so for a parent, weirdly, it's safe. It's a good thing. Go get the GI Bill, that type of deal. Completely different post 9/11, sending your kids off 100%. To join the military.
100%.
So it's all about the era that which, as a parent, your child decides to go in the military.
100%. And Oregon being Oregon, let's be real here too, right? I mean, hippies.
Very, very.
We're talking about
red
tree huggers and hippies everywhere you look. It's always been this way. It's always been, marijuana. It's just been the way it always is.
Isn't the motto like "Keep Portland strange" or something like that?
Something like, yeah, I think it is actually. Yeah. So when I told my friends and their parents and stuff, what are you talking about, Ramone? Why are you joining the Navy? Nobody else, none of my friends saw that. Like there was nobody that was thinking the same route, military. So I was the lone friend that was, I had one buddy in high school. He ended up joining the Marine Corps. We stayed in contact a little bit over the time, but man, there wasn't anybody that I can recall that was joining the military at that time,
When you and your cousin started talking about it and your cousin mentioned the Navy, where I'm going with this is, did you know you wanted to do medicine and then had to find out that to be with the Marines, you had to be a corpsman in the Navy? Or what was the path? I mean, when you guys were first talking about the Navy, were you both talking about being corpsmen?
No. So I didn't know anything. It was just about getting out and, I I think full speed ahead or something. You know what I mean? Whatever the motto was, but it was just kind of getting away and going exploring and seeing that again. I think my dad, he instituted this adventure mindset in my brain as a young kid. And this is what I saw when I saw the Navy. When I thought of the Navy, I thought of an adventure that I'm really going to go enjoy and go do it. I was, my first airplane ride ever was to boot camp. I had never left on an airplane. I had never left home. I had never done anything.
So once you guys agreed on the Navy, that's it. You never even considered any of the other branches.
I had an Army recruiter came to the house, came to my casa, dude. And my dad, I mean, this guy came in all raw. I mean, he was so hoity-toity, formality. I mean, way too over the top for my taste and for my dad's taste. And my dad was just like, that guy had about 10 minutes at the dinner room table. He lasted about 10 minutes before my dad was like, I just don't think this is the right match or fit for my son, and for our family. I mean, I was in total agreement with him. Like, I didn't see myself, you think of the different services and like the level of formality for each, right? Marine Corps, Army, right? I mean, we're talking killers, right? We're talking, disciplined as can be. You talk about Air Force, right? Much more lax kind of standards. Still some killers in the Air Force, right? Air Force is awesome. But yeah, I mean, frankly, their climate and the culture is just a little bit more. And the Navy was like the mid ground, right? It wasn't too easy going. It didn't have like a bad rap of like weak in any minds, right? But it wasn't as freaking as the Marine Corps or the Army, right? And so I felt like that was my perfect fit for the Navy. It was perfect. My cousin, he had agreed to go with me. But when it came down time to go, my cousin didn't show up. He didn't show up, dude. I was by myself. I left by myself. Yeah. The whole plan, the whole time was for him to kind of go with me. And then at the very end, he decided that he wanted to stay home. He didn't want to go. And so I left. Yeah. I went by myself. And I mean, to be honest with you, like, yeah, there's some crappy, I mean, anybody that served, first responders or you serve a career in anything. I mean, it's got its bad times or whatever. Mm-hmm. I loved every single second of the Navy. I ain't gonna lie. Like I did. I mean, the worst times I look back are just truly some of the best times I ever had in my life, So I really enjoy, I came into the Navy full force, ready to just go do anything and everything. And my dad had encouraged me to do that. Like, that's what he wanted me to do, kind of vicariously. He was living through me, right? He's like, I get to live the dream that I had now through you, Ramone. So you go and he had taught me all the things I needed to do to be successful. He really did. The work ethic, the never give up, right? Like, I mean, physically, to not be afraid to do new things, just go do wonderful things. And so, I went to boot camp, like I said, my first flight ever on an airplane was there. And I had a girlfriend at the time. And I was the kid, the 18-year-old crying in the corner in the airport that I'm leaving my girlfriend for the first time. And I was so sad. It was the end of the world. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm never going to see her again. All those things. I mean, I remember sobbing like at the airport when I was leaving, it was just totally over the top ridiculous now, but,
did you go to Great Lakes?
I did. Great Lakes.
What time of the year?
Winter, all the way around, man. I got there, October. Was it? No. So July I got there and then I went through boot camp. Corpsman school is right across the street, right? So I finished boot camp in October and went right over to Corps school. And that's when I got the winter. So, for Corps school is like 14 weeks long. So I think my graduation set was like February or something like that. So I got a taste and now this is the day of like dungarees, man. Like you don't see these anymore in the Navy, but the jeans, the bell-bottom jeans, the boondockers and denim shirts, right? Like iron-on ranks and things, just, pea coats, like legit pea coats, man. I've just found my pea coat, dude. I just found my pea coat and it fit me. I was like, it was wonderful. But this is the white cap, the sailor, the classic sailor you see in history. I was living that right there in the cold, shoveling snow, doing our thing. And then I was just, Corps school was just, I I loved everything. You learn, corpsman. I know you've had corpsman on here before. I don't know how much they talk about it, but you kind of learn a little bit of everything when it comes to medicine, not just emergency medicine, right? Like kind of like, I think Army medics, maybe this is where we're just a little bit different from an Army medic to a corpsman, is that Army medics are very well versed in emergency medicine. I mean, they're getting EMT certified when they come out of their medic school and things like that. Corpsmen you get nursing, you get medicine. I mean, you get emergency response. I mean, you get all the actions. You're doing all the IVs, you're doing all of the things. So it's a lot. You learn a lot in 14 weeks. So that's where I just think a little bit different than kind of that different differentiator between medics and corpsmen initially. So you come out of there, and man, when I left Corps school, it was like all I wanted was, so there was wish lists then. Like you could actually have a wish list then, and it was first, second, third choice. And I knew exactly what my role, my instructor was a senior chief at the time, Senior Chief Navarro. Dude, I don't know how I just remembered his name. I haven't said his name in probably 20 years, but I just said his name. But he was a Greenside corpsman through in his entire career. I mean, and he was just a stud, just this freaking tall, squared away, bald, tan, just fit dude, loud. He was just he was a wonderful, like person that you're brand new in the Navy, brand new corpsman, and you're looking to who I want to be like. Like I couldn't have had a better instructor, and he saw what I wanted to do. I was an athlete, man. I was in shape, man. I was crushing all the aspects when it came to fitness, and he knew like I wanted Greenside. I wanted to be with the FMF, and so my choices were first MARDIV, second MARDIV, third MARDIV. That's the only three choices. I don't want anything else, And I don't even know how. I think they just picked. In the end, I think the instructors just kind of pick who they think are right fit for the orders that they get. Some orders come our way. A group of orders are handed to a class, and then the instructors say, "Let's put them where we think they best go." And everybody wanted to go to California. Like at that time, right? Like California was this sun and beaches, and I had never left home. I had never left Oregon. The only place I'd been was Great Lakes outside of Oregon, right? And so what I had heard about California was just this sunshine and beaches and all these things, and I'm like, that's what I want. And so when I knew 1st Marine Division was West Coast, California, I said, that's it. That's what I want. I would have done Lejeune. I would have done the 2nd MARDIV or 3rd MARDIV if that's what happened, but I ended up being so everybody in my class wanted to go to 1st MARDIV, because it was the same thing. We all wanted that sunshine and all that stuff. And I was the only one in the entire class that got orders to 1st MARDIV. Right. And so I'm like, I total win. I'm ready. I'm rocking. I'm so excited. And I get on an airplane and I fly over to Palm Springs Airport is where I end up. And I'm like, I'm reporting to McCaxey, 29 Palms, California is where I'm reporting to. And I don't know though that this isn't the beaches and the
sounds amazing.
Yeah, I was like, this is California. Dude, I'm set. I'm ready. And I arrived to the desert. I mean, as far out in the desert as you can be, out a 45-minute drive, they picked me up, and this is, we traveled. You went in uniform back then, right? Now it's not advised, right? For security, all kinds of reasons why we don't do it now, right? But back then you did.
Don't travel in uniform, but have the cami backpack that completely makes you stand out.
So I went, dress whites, and I checked in, and it was like 3 a.m. when I got there. And again, I was the only one that had gotten orders from my class. So I was solo again, all by myself again, right? Another experience all by myself, and I get there and they just drop me off at this company office, and some corporal comes in, "Hey doc, what's up?" And I got little French fries, right? I got 2 in a little caboose, right? A little mosquito sitting there. And I'm just like, what do we do? I'm here. And they put me in a little barracks room, and then it began, right there, I checked into 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. Oh no, wait a minute. I went to field med school. So I forgot field med school, but it was the same thing. Like we arrived there. Are you familiar with field med school? Field med school is kind of that school where you learn how to be with the Marine Corps. Right. It's like a 6-week school. Super cool school. I totally forgot about field med school. I don't know why, but Yeah, that was a fun school. That's a fun school.
Is it run by corpsmen who are on the
Corpsmen
green
and
side?
Marines, yeah, corpsmen and Marines. We have Marine Corps instructors. And, we had some, you got some recon instructors, some recon corpsmen instructors. You have Marines. And I crushed that school too. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. It was I remember that's how I got to 2-7. I remember now. I got to 2-7 because they brought us in a room upon graduation and they said, who wants to deploy? That was the very first question that came in. The entire class is sitting in a room and they're like, who wants to deploy? And I looked at my buddy, John, he's right next to me. I had Kurt right next to me on this side and I was like, let's go. And they're like, yes, boom, hands up, like deploy right away. 2-7. They're the next deployment. They're the next battalion leaving. So you're going to 2-7. So rolled out that's how I got to 29 Palms. That's how we got there. And then, and then we got there like I think April or something like that. And then we rolled out that later that year, just a few months later, to Okinawa, Japan for the first time.
Once you're deployed to a Marine unit,
mm-hmm.
what impact or what influence does the Navy have on your day-to-day? Because I mean, your fit reps are done by a Marine officer or the Marine Corps, correct?
Yeah.
So it's like, at what point in time do you go back to the Navy? Is your request for training or anything, is that run through the Navy or is that still run through the Marine Corps?
So we still have like a chief. We still have there's a Navy personnel command that they have on the Marine Corps base. So anything that has to be run kind of through Navy protocol or Navy hierarchy, whatever, that's where corpsmen kind of ran their stuff through. So it's still present on the base. But for the most part, when you're a line corpsman, when you're a division corpsman, man, you answer to the Marines. You know what I mean? I came in as a junior corpsman initially, but you spend enough time with them, you become a senior line corpsman, and you're in charge of 3 corpsmen, and it's you and company gunny and the CO. You know what I mean? So you're an E3 and E4. This is the beauty of the Marine Corps, right? They take rank at such a junior level and institute leadership and responsibilities at a level that I haven't seen anywhere else. In the division, a corporal, an E4, you don't talk to corporal, dude, unless you have a purpose or a meeting, right? Like if you're a PFC or private or anything below the Lance Corp, dude, you have no purpose talking to Corporal so-and-so, then don't get out of here. You know what I mean? So when I made HM3, E4, now I'm like a corporal. And in the division, in the grunt world, that means something. That has a lot of meaning to it, right? You've kind of done some stuff to get to that point, and people respect that. Like they in the division forces, right? For good purpose. It is for good purpose because they're making calls. Now, when I went to combat years and years later, we got corporals making serious calls about saving lives and taking enemy, right? And so it's for good reason and totally the way that it should be. But man, I ended up with a scout sniper platoon for about a year and a half that I was there, which is just elite, right? I was a junior corpsman and man, it wasn't hard to succeed in the green side, right? Like you better be able to pick up a pack. You better keep up on rung. Don't fall out. Take care of our Marines, doc. Like that was my CO's thing. Like don't fall out, And
for a corpsman, what's the selection process to getting to a scout sniper team?
So kind of that, you got to be kind of that dude that's in shape, that one that maybe is a little bit of cut above the rest on some, at least
is there a dedicated selection process?
No,
okay.
No. You got corpsmen that check into a battalion, because you have H&S company, right? Your headquarters, hot dogs and soda company, whatever, right? And then you got Echo platoon, Foxtrot, you got all these, and the grunt line corpsmen are the thing, and scout snipers actually at that time fell under the H&S platoon. So, I had gone straight to the H&S platoon, and then they were like, okay, dude, you're like crushing everything. You'd be a perfect fit for the scout sniper platoon. And so I went there and, which is just snake eaters, man, like just animals, dude. And I got to shoot I really learned how, at this point I'd never shot guns, right? And in boot camp, you actually qualified with rounds when I went back then, you know what I mean? And I qualified expert, but that's like a Navy range that was, inside a little whatever canister or something like that, right? But here is where I really, and we had some old country Marines, right? Some Oklahoma dudes, like some dudes that learned how to shoot from when they were toddlers, right? And now they're snipers in the Marine Corps, and they're the ones teaching me how to really shoot rifles and pistols and all these things. And so all my requirement was don't fall out of anything. You better be in just as good a shape, if not better, because when we're taking breaks on hikes, the corpsman goes to work. You don't get to take a break, right? And that was the reality of it. And I loved it. Bring it to me. I wanted to do anything and everything you needed me to do. To have that ability to do those things was just so. We got to spy rig. I mean, we were doing high speed stuff. You know, spy rig, and they like hanging from a helicopter, dude. Like, what in the world is going on? You know, I'm just this kid from Oregon, and now I'm hanging from a helicopter, and I've got snipers above me with rifles, and we're doing just the radish stuff on the planet. You know what I mean? And I just absolutely loved it. You know, I had checked in. Funny story with these guys. These dudes were like, man, so I'm brand new to 29 Palms. I went to Scout Sniper. You know, I don't have a lot training. We learn your skills really when you're in it, right? Like, yeah, the schools teach you the basic level of school skills to get by, but all the lessons really get learned when you're doing the thing, right? So we're on a range one morning and one afternoon, and one of the Marines comes up to me and he's like, Doc, and he's got a baby rattlesnake in his hand, man. He's holding this little tiny, and if you know anything about baby snakes, right? Those are more dangerous than that.
Because they don't know how to control their venom.
They can't control their venom. So when they bite, it is all release, right? And I knew that about snakes. But what I didn't know, because I hadn't been exposed to it and nobody had actually sat me down and taught me, was to actually how to care for a snake bite, dude. So I legitimately did not know what to do for this snake bite if he got bit. So I'm looking at this Marine and I realized this and I'm like, listen to me. I'm being 100% honest with you. If you get bit by this snake, it's just going to dump everything that it has into you. And I don't know what to do. I honestly didn't know what to do.
Cut it open and sucked out the venom.
And I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do. And they're like, Doc, whatever, dude. You're just saying this shit to try and scare them. I'm like, and I'm terrified in my brain, man. I'm sitting here like, is this about to happen right? These dudes are about to get bit. We're miles in the desert right now because we're out of range. I'm terrified that these guys are going to get bit. I'm like, oh my God, you guys, please listen to me. I'm just begging them to listen to me. And the whole time they think I'm joking with them. And I'm just like, thankfully, nobody got bit. They kept it though. They put it inside a Gatorade bottle and they took that thing back to the barracks and stuff. Like these are the type of warriors, right?
It's our team pet.
Right, exactly.
We're going to feed it.
Dude, we got back Humvees and I went straight to the BAS, the Battalion Aid Station, found our IDC. And I said, I need everything I need to know about snake bites right now. Everything. And so he taught me all about the bands, constricting flow, all the right way, elevation, all these things, anti-venoms, all these things that the IDCs, like the higher level corpsmen, independent duty corpsmen, they're the ones that have all these kind of things. But the ultimate rule is just don't let them play with snakes. I said, I tried, dude. I said, I tried to get them, but they didn't listen. They thought I was joking the entire time. He just shakes his head, he's like, well, lesson learned, right? I definitely know how to take care of snake bites. You know what I mean? But this was the level of, Marines I was kind of surrounded with, once I left Scout Snipers, I went to Division Line Corpsman, I was with, Echo Platoon, 27 Echo Company, man. Just epic group, just amazing group of Marines. They have something called Super Squad. I don't know. It's, so the Marine Corps Infantry has a competition where it's a competition of ground tactics, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just, everything that's surrounding being a grunt corpsman, right? And they compete in it. There's competitions and they compete at a company level where it's like squad versus squads. And then it's at a battalion level where it's companies versus companies. And then it goes to a higher level. It goes to kind of a, battalion level. Now you're looking at 7th Marines as a whole. So it was 2-7 versus 1-7, 3-7, all that. And then you go to division level. Well, now you're competing at 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Mar Div where you're traveling, you're doing all these things.
But this is just corpsmen?
This is Marines.
Oh, okay.
This is Marines with one corpsman.
Got it.
12 Marines, one corpsman.
Got it.
Infantry squad, that's what infantry test or, super squad is what they call it. And I got to be a part of this for our company, had my Marines, 12 Marines, and we competed in all things, shooting, setting up defenses, setting up ambushes, patrolling, all the things, man. And we won for 2-7. And, my group, we won for 7th Marines. We went to Camp Pendleton and we did a big high level competition, big visibility on all this. And then we won for them. And then we ended up competing division wise, 1st Marine division wise. And we ended up winning 1st Mardiv. So I actually was just this E3 corpsman that had just won this major, like infantry grunt competition. And we got sent to DC. We got to meet the right there on 8th and I lawn, and they did this big performance, and the commandant of the Marine Corps comes up and he gives you this gold shooting badge, right? Like, if you ever seen it, Marines grunts, right? There's a very small percentage of people that have this actual medal, and to be a corpsman and have one of these is even that much more kind of prestigious. And it's not a technical medal, it's not like on awards, it's not in the official awards, Navy awards thing. It's just something that you get from the Marine Corps. And so there's no
kind of one of those things that probably has more value personally than many other awards. Or
anybody that sees that, they know exactly what that means. And so it's kind of like a level of like, oh, okay, like this guy, that's an awesome achievement. So it was funny because we won the competition. We get back and we have a dress whites inspection, right? So it's a dress uniform inspection, commanding general, the entire base. This is a big deal. Everyone's at the base theater. Everyone is they're sitting there. Everyone's dressed up. The corpsmen, we're all together in our group. The Marines are doing their thing. And the commanding general comes over to the corpsmen. And it's all ice cream cones, right? All the whites, dressed whites standing there. And he's going through everybody, and Marine inspections are still, even commanding general, dude, they don't pull any punches, dude. They're sitting there looking, you're 1/4 inch above, man. And if you're not, he's correcting you, right? Like so it's just awesome, right? It's just super awesome. It wasn't just this dog and pony show of a high level ranking officer coming there to just waste everybody's time. He's actually doing something, it was pretty cool. Well, he goes down the line. I'm like 10th or 11th in the line, and he comes to me and he stops and now, there is no regulation for this medal. There is no Navy regulation for this medal. And I remember my H1, my chief, I think it was a chief at the time, was like, you can't wear that. You can't wear that thing. And it's not an authorized medal to wear. You're not able to wear, because you have the ability to wear like Marine Corps regs if you want to be Marine Corps regs, where you can wear like the alphas, but I didn't. I still loved the Cracker Jacks, dude. I don't care. I loved being a sailor with the Marines, and I flexed anytime I could in those uniforms. I loved it, right? So I was like, but he's like, you can't wear it. There's no regs. And I was like, that ain't gonna work for me. I was like, that's not gonna work. And he's like, so that was the expectation, that I wouldn't wear it. I showed up that morning and I had it on, and I put it perfectly squared up 1/4 inch below the pocket seam, and it was centered perfect, and it was there, knowing that this is not authorized to wear. I was like, there's no way my Marines are all going to wear their medals today. Then I'm not going to wear mine too. And so I standing there, and the commanding general, the chief is next to him, sees that I'm wearing a medal that he had just told me, dude, you're not authorized to wear that, right? He sees this, and this general looks at me, man, and he's like, damn, Doc, that's a major bragging rights. And he just like shakes my hand, right? The only person in the entire group shakes my hand, is like, hoo-yah, Doc, like, oorah, Doc, and the chief is just sitting there like, and I kind of giving him that side eye, like, that's right. That's exactly what I knew was going to occur when this happened. And so, but yeah, I hold on to that. That memory was, that was a fun one, man. That was a lot of work went into that thing. And, I still have it today. It's still in my office today. That badge is sitting there, and it's, I've seen a few Marines throughout my career in uniforms wearing that thing. And, it's pretty crazy. What's wild is I'm in DC, and it's like 4 a.m, so really it's a big party, right? Let's be real. Like, let's be real. We went there to receive an amazing award, get a lot of pats on the backs, handshakes, hugs, all those great things. And, but I mean, we're in DC, and the Navy just gave me a whole bunch of money. I don't have a care in the world. It's time to go party. Like, we're going to party. So we partied every night we possibly could, man. It's like 4 a.m. We're practicing for the event that next night, and everybody's sideways in formation, dude. We're all sitting there like this, and first MARDIV was sitting in our group. Second MARDIV was here. Third and fourth, right? Fourth, the Marine Reserve, they even had their own super squad, and we're all standing in our own section, right? And amongst the stupor, I'm looking across there, and I see the corpsman for 2nd Marine Division. His name is Seth Sipe. He was my roommate in hospital corpsman school, dude. Like, me and this dude had gone through hospital corpsman school together and then separated. I went to the West Coast. He went to the East Coast without ever talking to each other again. It's over a year later, and we're standing across receiving the same badass award, dude. I mean, I broke ranks. He broke ranks. We were just like hugged it out right there in the middle of everybody. It was so special, man. But it was just kind of a testament of like, your bros, like the ones that like-minded people that just, cause I knew what he had been through to get that medal, and he knew what I'd been through to get that medal. And so there was a lot, it was an awesome day, man. It was just super cool. But, yeah, that was kind of my experience with the green side, and it just ended up being, I did one deployment overseas, did all the great stuff, jungle warfare training, all those types of things. Loved all those things, it was all just awesome times. And then I left there. It was time to leave, and I was like, I had my sights set on being a diver corpsman, medical corpsman. And I knew that the school was in Panama City, Florida. And I had been, like, all my friends had been training to be SEALs. Everybody had been trying, just our small group of corpsman buddies. We're kind of just a cut above the rest, right? And everybody wanted to do something a little bit more elite, so we had, guys that wanted to be force recon corpsmen. We had guys that wanted to be divers. We had guys that the SEALs, wannabes and things like that. And, that was my knit group. And, I was like, I'm going to be the one to go to Florida in hopes to become, dive corpsman, recon corpsman, something like that. And, so I went to Pensacola, Florida, at that point. And, that was just culture shock. Now I'm sitting in Navy world, right? And definitely not division. You're in a naval hospital, right? And at that point, I worked in family medicine, like, man, doing vital signs, checking in, wives and kids and all these things. Man, it was odd, but I didn't mind it. I was just like,
are they putting you back in the hospital for a refresher or?
No. So you go from sea duty to shore duty in the Navy. In the Navy, normal Navy goes sea duty, shore duty, sea duty, shore duty. It's a rotation, 3 years each. That's how it rotates.
So this was simply just a shore duty.
Mm-hmm. Just a shore duty is all it was for me. So I went there, worked in, I became a procedures corpsman because I had already, the stuff that I had learned from being green side kind of set me up. One of the commanders there was a prior SEAL, he was a SEAL, and he was now a surgeon. He's one of the senior level, doctors there in the hospital. And he had known my background, he's like, I need you to be my guy for procedures, right? You have experience doing, you understand surgical technique, you understand the purpose of, a lot of corpsmen that just come fresh out of high school, you don't necessarily know those things, right? So I got to sit with Commander Casey, man, it was awesome. Did procedures, opened my eyes up. I learned a lot, you know what I mean? But I lived in Florida, Pensacola. Have you ever been to Pensacola, man? But it's just it's kind of like the lower Alabama, it's in the panhandle there. It was just awesome. It was just so cool.
So did you choose Florida just so you could be closer in the sense of hoping that would get you a better opportunity to go to dive school?
Precisely. That's exactly what it was. So when I got there, my whole mindset was train, and since I'm so close, I'm going to get there closer. Like that's how, or sooner, right? That's how I kind of thought.
So then where were you at on 9/11?
Right there. I was right there at Naval Hospital, Pensacola.
There's a moment in life when you realize it was never about you. Grind, spelled GRND, is different. There's no I in it on purpose, because the mindset was never about ego. It's about the mission. Started by a former Army Ranger, it's not about where you are. It's about how you show up. Different lives, different pressures, but the same mindset. Grind isn't clothing you wear just to look good. It's a reminder of why you keep going when it gets tough, and you keep putting in the work when no one's watching. For the early mornings, the late nights, the reps that no one sees. This isn't just fashion, it's fuel. Because real work isn't loud, real effort doesn't need applause, and real purpose doesn't quit. Head on over to thegrndcollective.com and use the promo code transition15 for 15% off your order.
The morning of, I was sitting there, checking in patients. We were checking in patients, and then we had the waiting rooms, like five waiting rooms on each side of this big, huge corridor building. And there's TVs in each of these waiting rooms. And I remember that morning, the TV's on, and I watched it all go down right there. I'll never forget it. It was that morning. I'm watching it all happen, unfold. Everybody at this point is kind of catching wind of what's happening. And then before you know it, everybody's sitting in the waiting room. The chairs are filled and everybody's watching this just unfold, right? Before our very eyes, right? And, remember, there was talks of like this terrorist, this was a terrorist event, all this was, nothing was confirmed at this point, but it was all talked about. Like this is 2 planes have just been flown in, right? And in my brain, I was like, we're going to respond. This means we're going to respond. I knew what was going to happen. And so I remember this, Paul. Like, and it's so funny you bring this up because it's a cool thing that I felt like, dude, when that happened, I had a master chief in that command there, and his name was Don Nelson. Still one of my favorite human beings on the planet. Well, he lives in Alaska. I can't wait to go see him one day. I will. But Don Nelson there, and I went to Don, or to Master Chief, and I was like, we're going to respond to this. And wherever we have to respond, if you have to send anybody to go be in response to this, send me. Please send me. This is what I came in the Navy to do. You know what I mean? Man, it was in my mind. This was what I came in the Navy to do, And so,
but in theory, though, that would have required you to get reassigned to the Marine Corps to get.
So the thing about shore duty in the Navy and hospitals, and it still happens today, they get taskers. They get taskers that'll say, so the command master, the CO or the command master chief of a naval hospital will receive, hey, listen, I need 5 corpsmen taskers to go with some Marine group, on a amphib ship or go somewhere else, find 5 corpsmen within your entire hospital to go do. And that's called a tasker, right? And so those were happening all the time back then. So it wasn't abnormal. So that's in my mind, knowing that, that's what I was thinking when talking to Master Chief. Like,
got it.
You're going to get a tasker. They're going to call somebody and come get me, please. You know what I mean? So, I kind of knew, but then, response didn't happen initially, right? There was a lot of things going on. At this time, the naval hospital that I was a part of was, they had something called a fleet hospital, and a fleet hospital was pretty much a tent hospital is what this was. And they had evolved, like we're talking like MASH level stuff, right? Like green GP tents and doctors working on cots and in the dirt and stuff like that, right? Like this is kind of an evolved version of that, right? A fleet hospital was. And we were on that platform. So within these shore commands, there is an operational platform that's like a B billet, right? Your A billet is the hospital, but your B billet is the fleet hospital. And if the fleet hospital gets called, then you're rolling out on that fleet hospital to go do our thing. Well, it happened. It happened to us. Our fleet hospital 3, was called out, and it was crazy because we were kind of a testing platform. We weren't even a tested and proven platform just yet. But they were like, in 2003, the initial invasion, our fleet hospital was activated to go. So we knew that happening. Master Chief knew where I was at in all this. And right away, I was in charge. Like, he placed me in charge of kind of like a lot of, now we're talking like NBC was a threat. Nuclear, biological, chemical was a threat then, right? Like Gulf War, it was a threat. People were wearing gas masks, full mop suits. This was still very much a threat then, right? And I remember a chief telling me way back in the day, they're like, you're going to know when you're headed to the shit, when you get on the bus and they hand you morphine and they hand you atropine and 2-pan chloride. That's, you're going somewhere dangerous. Like that was, until that ever happens, you're never doing anything dangerous until that happens. And this was the instant it happened. I got onto a bus and we were given atropine and 2-pan chloride and morphine syringe. And I was like, we're going to go do this, And so, I was in charge, I had just come from that green side mindset, right? So I was still on high level, you know, I saw like, you can die, guys, if you don't operate this way, if you don't follow procedures and protocol when putting on your gas mask, you're going to breathe something bad and you will die. Like there is no other thing, right? So having this mindset and this kind of intensity about myself, Master Chief had me kind of in charge of like MBC training, right? So we had people doing mop drills. We were doing mop drills every single day in preparation, like speed, you know, all this. And I had timer and I'm running around, walking around with a timer. And if they didn't meet it within, I don't remember what it was, like a minute and a half or something like that, they didn't, you know, it's like donning your FFE for firefighters, right? There's a reason why it needs to be speed and expedited. So I'm walking around and I'm like, you're dead. You just breathe friggin', you know, VX or whatever, and you're dead. And I'm walking, you're dead, and you're dead, and you're dead. And the first training that we did, and I applied that, all these people, I was like, get down, lay down on the ground. And then we were like, Master Chief was like, stop. Everybody look around you right now. And you've got all these people laying on the ground. And this is the reality of the environment that we were about to go into, right? Unknowing, we didn't know what exactly it was going to be like, but this was a real thing, right? And so watching that and seeing that just kind of opened up everybody's eyes to the fact that we're going into harm's way. We need to take this seriously. This isn't shore duty anymore. This is really operational type duty. And now, Paul, we're talking about surgeons and doctors and nurses and people that didn't necessarily join the Navy to go to war, right? And so they haven't shot guns. They don't know. They haven't carried a gas mask on their hip. They haven't done these things. And so this was a shock. This took some getting used to, right? And some serious training. And I think the command leadership of Fleet Hospital 3 knew that and said,
now, did they just simply ramp up the training, or had they given you an anticipated deployment date?
Yeah, they gave us an anticipated date. And so, we ended up rolling out in March of 2003. I think the initial invasion was like May, right? April or May, I think the initial invasion day. But we rolled out. We all flew out. And we arrived in Kuwait. We said, now in this time, Saddam knows it's right. The inevitable is coming. And so there's attacks happening. I mean, it was just nothing but Scud missiles being sent over from Saddam, from the Iraq side over into Kuwait, especially close to the border, because he knew everybody was pre-staging at the border, all these things. So, dude, it was no cakewalk getting there. Now, we were a Fleet Hospital 3, technically a hospital unit, but we were fully in harm's way. And we were jumping in bunkers every single hour, it seemed like. It got to a point where you could hear the fan, the engine on the missile flying over your head before the sensor would go off. That's how many times we were jumping in bunkers. And these missiles were crapshoot, man. These weren't hard. I mean, maybe there was, you know, I wasn't at a high enough level at that point to know if there were targets that were identified by them. But man, as far as we knew, these things were just landing anywhere. I mean, you're hearing stories of like people getting blown up in porta-johns and stuff, right? Like galleys getting hit and people, you know, being killed and things like that. Just random people, or just blowing up in the middle of some open field somewhere, right? There was no rhyme or reason, it seemed like, where these missiles were landing. But we just knew you better get your ass into a bunker. If you don't, the chance, you know. And so my brain, you know, I was thinking, I'm going to run every single stinking time to that bunker and get inside that thing, to ensure my safety, right? And so, but like it's crazy when you're in combat, like the things that you become accustomed to, you know, and then you become like
a week later, you're like, I don't want to run again.
Yeah. And everybody got that way. You know, everybody got that way. Everybody, now the invasion day was amazing, right? I remember sitting at the border in a bunker and I watched the entire sky. I mean, it was the most you want to talk about the most motivating thing I'd ever seen in my entire military career was this moment in time when as far as I could look to the left and to the right were aircrafts, helicopters, bombers, everything. There are roads of Humvees and tanks and all these things. And on day one, we all moved at the same time. And I look and I see the ground is just shaking from all of the aircrafts that are flying over. I mean, it was just I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about how incredible that moment was. And we got to be a part of that. You know what I mean? And we went in there and it was legit. NBC drills, gas masks every single day, multiple times. We had to go build our camp. We had CBs. I don't know if you're familiar with CBs, man, but you know, they have been at the forefront of every single historical freaking conflict that we've ever had. CBs, they just don't get enough credit. They don't get the high fives and the hugs like everybody else, man. They are literally at the forefront of every single major conflict that we've had. CBs have been there, and they, just like this, they were there with us to go help set up that hospital. So we had bulldozers, we had earth movers, we had all these things, and we got to our location just south of Tikrit. We were there, and we set up this full-on tent, crazy hospital, and everybody lived in GP tents. We had GP tents in the sand. You know, we fought the scorpions and the camel spiders and all the things I'm sure you've heard tons of stories about. We had all that. And we had, the moment that we opened up our doors, it was like kind of almost like mass casualty every single day. And once the people in the cities, surrounding cities, you know, Iraq cities that were there.
In a combat environment, when you're deployed like that, in a medical situation at a base, is it only staffed by Navy and Marine Corps personnel, or is it a joint operation of all the branches at what I would say one of the more higher level of care facilities?
So you're right. You're right in two senses, that the higher level facilities are generally joint operations, right? You got Air Force people in there. And when you saw those at, like, in Kuwait, in the major big camps that we saw, that's where you saw joint operations. Ours was not. It was Navy and Marine Corps security forces, all we had with us, and CBs.
But now the people, when you said when you opened up the door, it was like mass casualty event.
I mean,
but were you only receiving Marines and Navy personnel?
No, we were seeing all Iraqi nationals.
Oh, okay.
Which is wild, which is the intention. I don't know that was our intention upon arriving. When we got there and the doors opened up, and the townspeople, they were bringing us all their injured family members, all the people, all the secondary, you know, injuries, all the things that happen, right? All that, the civilians that get hurt. I mean, and so we were seeing children that were, because, you know, it was this all out, you know, what I can recall from there was, you know, Iraq, you know, Saddam Special Army, the Fedayeen and their armies and everything were shooting guns, they're ready, you know, and there were people that were being injured because of this. And so we received some wild, I mean, 4-year-old children with bullets in, you know, in the top of their brains. We had several gunshot wounds, broken arms, so many different. And then we saw some like major illness stuff, like things like cancer or major tumors, things that obviously we weren't necessarily equipped to take care of right there. But we took care of them. We took care of, I would venture to say probably about 80% of the patients that we had taken care of were Iraqi nationals, were not Americans. So we had neurosurgeons, we had orthopedic surgeons, we had X-ray facilities. This is all inside Connex boxes, right? We had just created this massive like little space where we could do virtually anything, and we had 2 neurosurgeons there. Like we called them the grumpy old men. Like they were like, you know what? I'm so old at this point that if I blow up, I don't care. They didn't run anymore. They wore tennis shoes. They didn't even wear boots. And they're just scurrying along. What are they going to do to me? Yeah. What's going to happen to me now at this point? Right. But I mean, they were surgical. The things that they were doing, craniotomies, and this is an initial invasion. We're at war. And we are doing some high-level surgeries, saving so many people's lives because of it. And it was tremendous what we were capable to do there. At no point did we really have we had incoming rounds every single day. There were incoming rounds. Probably more so when we were on the border preparing to go that we saw the most of that. When we were in country, now the fighting was all happening at each location, right? It wasn't necessarily them attacking, just trying to keep everybody away. Now the fight is on, right? Baghdad, all the fights are happening. So that kind of went away for us. We didn't really have that threat of that, but we went in there and we just, at this point now I'm like kind of in charge of a med surg ward. So I had a 33 bed ward. And it was weird. We had 3 wards in this tent hospital. One ward was all Iraqis. It was primarily Iraqis were the only patients that went in there. We had another ward that was far away from that one that was all Americans. Any American would come through there, would go through there. And then there was my ward in the middle, which was the runoff of both. So I had tents, I had curtains inside mine. I had to separate because I would have one half, whatever the runoff of the Iraqi nationals were, and then whatever the runoff of the Americans were. So we had both on mine. And then mine too, unfortunately, was also the expectant ward, right? When we think of, triage and the different categories that we put, expectant are the patients that have either arrived dead or their injuries are so grave that we decided that we're not going to use all of our resources to try and save them when we could be using those resources somewhere else. So that was my ward. So when somebody arrived that was grotesquely injured or there just wasn't anything happening for them, they'd call me and be like, come bring your team. They're either in a body bag already or we had to put them most times we had to put them in a body bag. So I would take them if they were alive, this sounds wild. This sounds nuts, but they'd get medicated and then we'd bring them to my ward and, I just put them back there and check on them and wait until they had passed. Right. But this is war, man. This is how it works. Right. And so I sat back there and I'd check on them and we had patients coming in and a lot of these dudes were bad dudes, bad guys. And, we then, they had the Fetty and the Angel of Death tattoos and all these guys. It's not good, the people that we were fighting, right? And they come there and we body bag and we saw some pretty wild stuff. I ain't gonna lie. And I hadn't necessarily seen trauma and grotesque things like this up to that point. So, but I was also the leader of the entire group. And so there's this, this era too, right? Of like, we don't show weakness, right? You're not gonna, if something bothers me, you're not going to know it because I'm not going to show it to you. And I had that leadership mindset had come to me from the green side, right? And so when I'm now here and I had these corpsmen all around me on my ward that were really looking to me, I believe that they were, right? Like to set the example of kind of how we need to proceed through this. It's not going to be easy. We're going to see things that are going to haunt you and you're never going to forget them, but we have to proceed, right? And so I remember Mass Chief one time, same Mass Chief, the one I was talking about earlier. He's there with us and he's like, this one's a doozy, man. It took like a round to the face, a sniper round, I think, to the face. He was a bad guy. So they're on a cart, they come on like a little cart with a blanket over him, right? And I bring him to the back room and I bring two corpsmen in and I haven't even seen the patient at this point, right? I haven't seen him. And I tell my two corpsmen, I was like, listen, Nash, you told me this one is not good. This one is going to look really bad. So let's just do exactly what needs to be done. Let's get it inside the body bag, close it up. We'll prepare it for departure, right? So I take this blanket off, man, and holy smokes, dude, like the entire face is just like, completely blown apart. And seeing this in real life, man, it was just like, I took my breath away for a moment, but immediately these corpsmen that I had with me on my team were not FMF experienced. They weren't, their minds weren't wired in a way that was prepared for like a war type mindset, right? Where I think I was kind of wired that way, right? So to me, it was, whoa, this is a big deal. But I didn't necessarily, I saw their response. Their response was like, this big, like, oh my God, right? And I'm talking like tongue this way, face this way. It was that gnarly of a thing. And I'm like, let's go. Get the bag. Give me the bag.
Still go work.
Let's wrap them up. We get them up. We got them wrapped up. Boom, boom. We prepare them for departure. Like if they were already dead upon arrival, then we just prepared them for, transport out of there. Anyways, so we get out of there and in this sense, like, but dude, I had one guy that came expectant, and he came to us and he was like, he was one of the bad guys, one of their special, special forces, whatever guys. And he had been shot. I think I want to say that he had probably like, I don't know, 7 or 8 gunshot wounds, multiple gunshot. Multiple, not like 2 or 3. I'm talking, this guy had been, and he was still breathing and he was still alive. And this was one of those, they're going to wait till they expire and then we'll just bag them, and send them away. So I took him back there and didn't get anything, we didn't give him anything, but, the amount of time that this man continued to live was unbelievable. Like it was we're almost 36 hours beyond receiving this guy. Nothing had been done for him. And he was alive still, right? And so they kept coming to me and they're like, is he alive still? I'm like, he's still breathing, you guys. Like, this is insane.
The thing is, regardless the uniform that you wear, the guys in this world who opt for and make it through selection to be special operators, they're a different mindset.
True.
Their power to not quit is not like everybody else's.
Right. Yeah.
You know, don't think it's just our guys who are really good at not giving up. You know, there's that mindset in you, regardless where you're at in this world, that you choose to be part of that special operations community. You've got a level of not quit in you.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, it was the purest example of it right there. Even just like you said, it was the human factor piece of that, right? We didn't body bag that guy. We sent him away alive. Like we just kind of prepared him for travel alive, and he was transported back, I think, to one of the hospital ships that was out in the water receiving patients at a large scale. But he didn't cease, man. He sat there and he lived. It was wild. That was a wild thing to see, man. Now, you know, I went to war later on where we were in danger, like we were, you know, searching houses, helo inserts, extracts. I kind of did all those things, you know, later on point in time. But this level of like war was so different. There was such a humanity piece to this, man. Like we saw women and children, and we saw things that nobody should ever have to see, right? You shouldn't have to see a grieving mom over her 3-year-old child that has nothing to do with this conflict, right? But she's dying, or she has an amputation that we had to do or something, right? Like these are the types of injuries that I had on my ward that we were encountering and that we had to deal with, and we had to take care of them, right? And then you had some, you know, some bad dude, like literally like one bed over, that's spitting on us, taking care of him, right? And so you had to shift gears from this tender little child or you know, that's right there next to you, and then you got this person that's spitting on you that could care less, that doesn't want you to touch them, right? But it was these moral decisions that we had to make on this deployment were unbelievable decisions. Like, why are we taking care of, right? Why are we taking care of the enemy and their people? And this is where America's just, I believe we're just great, right? Because we took care of this person as a human being, and that's what they deserve from us. That's what our military force, this group of people that I was with, this is what we had all agreed, that it's a human being, it's a life. We're going to make every effort to save their life. Whatever it is they're here for, or who they did, or what it is, so be it. Let God sort that, or whatever. Let that be sorted out somewhere else. But for here, if they arrive to us, we're going to take care of them. And I, man, in my brain, I went back and forth on this a lot. I mean, part of me didn't want to do anything for this guy. But then I had to be reminded, and I was reminded by good leaders, like, hey man, this is a human being. We're going to take care of him. And so we did. And it was, you know, come to find out, you know, years later, man, what I think, where all any trauma that I probably came through in my career, even despite the actual combat operations, it's that deployment, man. It's remembering those situations and those scenarios, because we saw something which made me even more proud to be a part of this. Like that's the word for that is, you know, it's just, it's tremendous. It's huge to be able to take your mind, that moral conflict that we're born and bred, we're warriors of the United States forces, and we're going to protect the United States at every cost. And now we're going to go take care of the enemies. Man, like that's a question, right? Like that's kind of like a police officer. I imagine, I'm not a police officer, but when you got to take care of a bad dude, you know they've done something bad, and now you have to make a decision on whether or not you're going to help this person, or you're just going to kind of let things go by, right?
Well, and that's the dichotomy of being a corpsman.
Sure.
Because you're wearing the uniform of the American military in a combat deployed operation, but ultimately you default to your code of ethics related to giving care to those who need your care.
Precisely. Yeah. It was great. It was the group of people that we were a part of, that were there with me for that. It was just, they're still friends today, right? They still came through for me for different things with my daughter. 25 years later, it's wild to think 25 years ago, over 20 years, a lifetime ago, we were there doing those things, but man, so that, also I was PSD too for my commanding officer. So personal security for my, so Mass Chief was like, dude, of all the corpsmen, he's like, dude, I think you might be the most well equipped to be able to kind of personal security for the commanding officer the entire time he's here. So everywhere the commanding officer went, I had to detach and depart. And I'd go get my weapons, and I was his driver. I took him everywhere, protected him all the different meetings, because we'd go outside. We were in it. So I'd have to drive to different camps and do all these things at 1 a.m, because all these camps, all these meetings are happening. High level meetings are occurring, wee late hours, obviously for OPSEC type reasons or whatever. But, so that was a fun part too. I got to, when we were retrograding, it's a funny story, but I was like, I didn't even have a Humvee. His vehicle was not a Humvee. It was a dually. I had this big Chevy dually truck. It was like a 3500 diesel. It wasn't a Humvee. We didn't have.
Was it commandeered, or did the Navy ship it over there?
They had it over. The Seabees brought it over. It was like a big green truck, right? And, this is what I drove. This is what I drove the CO in anytime we went anywhere. And I had, my M16 inside here, my pistol sidearm here. He had his sidearm. But Captain wasn't ready to shoot anybody, dude. Like, he definitely was like, I'm depending on you big time to do whatever we need to do. Anyways, so we're leaving. Okay. We're there 3.5 months, I think it was. New hospitals coming in. We had exhausted a lot of our supplies. This is logistical kind of nightmares or challenges that you have when you're in a wartime scenario, is the constant resupply of resources. So to continue to be able to do what we were doing, a new fleet hospital needed to come in and do that. So it was agreed upon. They were coming in. We were retrograding. We out. Breakdown camp. Do all these things. And we're departing. I'm the last group, right? CO. Where the majority of everybody's already left. The only people left are maybe like 20 vehicle convoy, last minute supply, last things. And we're driving out of there, and it's pitch black. It's desert dark. Desert dark is different than any other dark on the planet. Especially out there, it's just black. NVGs, in this sense, we had headlights on. So their light discipline didn't really apply in our retrograde at this point. We were lights on. We had a couple Marines, guiding us. They're supposed to be the best navigators, but man, not always, brother, not always. We were lost as shit out there. So we stop. We're in the middle of some road in the middle of nowhere. And we stop, and the Marine comes up to the window and he knocks, and he's like, Doc, hey, we got to kind of sort out where we are right now. So just take a few moments, rest, whatever.
Waze is acting goofy.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So Mass Chief's in the back seat. I'm in the front, and CO Captain's in the side, passenger seat, and we're out. All three of us fall asleep. We're lights out. And I hear a tap on the window. And it's a Marine again. He's like, dude, we're rolling. We're moving. I was like, okay, roger that. Mass Chief's asleep. Captain's still asleep. We're going. And I mean, when you drive like pitch black and it's just one headlight on one vehicle in front of you, man, I'm driving and I feel it coming. I'm dozing, right? I'm dozing big time. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like doing everything I can to stay awake. I'm like slapping myself. I'm trying to stay awake. And then all of a sudden, dude, I'm out. I am completely asleep. And I wake up and I'm off the side of the road. And I'm like, whoa, and I'm trying to wake up. Everyone in the car is panicking. I'm pulling the truck back over onto the main road, and I get going. And the captain, he looks at me. He's like, hey, shit, what's going on? What happened? Everyone's like, I'm like, you didn't see that animal on the road, dog. Sir, you didn't see the animal on the road. I was like, there was an animal. I had to go around this animal, dude. And he's like, Matt Chief's laughing his ass off. He knows exactly what happened. I was dreaming. Paul, I was dreaming. That's how asleep I was when this happened. And I woke up off the side of the road, and now we're back online. But yeah, so then, we retrograded out of there, man. And then we hightailed it right back to Pensacola, where, where I had another opportunity. Again, I just wanted to go do things, the detainee camp. Remember that? That was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. So a tasker came to the hospital and they asked for a corpsman. It was kind of a regular tasker. So it was kind of like a cyclic type thing. So it was every 6 months, new corpsmen were being taken from the hospital to go support operations happening there in the camp.
At this point in your career, are you committed to doing a career in the Navy?
No, not yet. No, I don't think I was. I was, a lot of people called me a lifer. They were like, dude, you're a lifer. And I'm like, whatever. I never even paid attention to that statement. I was just like, whatever. I loved what I was doing, and that's the way people saw it. Like, you should be doing this forever, right? And so, no, I didn't see it as a career. I don't think I even thought of life that way. I didn't think of 20 years or anything like that. I was just too excited and happy doing. No
pun intended. You were living one deployment at a time.
100%. That's exactly what I wanted it to be. Because this Guantanamo Bay was a deployment. That was another deployment where I had actually, and so I got pretty hooked up prior to that because I was still in my mindset going. I wanted to be a recon corpsman. I wanted to do all these things.
You still thinking you want to go to dive school at this point?
Still wanted to go to dive school, right? There was a master chief at the dive locker in Pensacola. He wasn't a part of my command, but I knew him through mutual friends. We had friends, and he had 5 billets to jump school, airborne jump school. So back in this day, Navy went to airborne school. Navy now has their own jump schools and things like that, but airborne Army school, Navy, SEALs, EOD, Force Recon Corpsman.
Okay. So
they used to go to,
when
they went to jump school.
I was thinking, why did they have billets for corpsmen to go to jump school? So it was for their special operators.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the special operators generally. So this master chief of the dive locker, he was a diver, he was like king of corpsmen, done everything that every corpsman ever wants to do, and he's that master chief. And he was like, listen, I've got 5 billets for jump school, and I only have 4 divers to go to it, so I have 1 left open. And he's like, and I don't want to eat this billet because then I won't get that 5th billet back next time when they give me more. And he's like, would you like to go? And he knew my path, he knew where I was at, and he's just like, would you like to go? I was like, yeah, my gosh, yes, I'd absolutely love to go. And he's like, but you have to screen for it. And he's like, so tomorrow morning, be back here at 6 a.m. and you're going to screen. And I was like, well, what's the screening? He's like, who gives a shit what the screening is? You show up here tomorrow and you do whatever it is I tell you to do. Do you understand this? And I'm like, boom, roger that, Master Chief. Like, now, man, I had been training. I've been rocking. I was ready. I felt like I was pretty much ready for anything that he brought to me. And the Army, I think the Army entry level test for jump school, I think it's just a fitness test. I think it was like pull-ups, 6 pull-ups or something you had to do, sit-ups, maybe push-ups, and like a 2-mile run. That was what you had to do. And, everything's got its time limit or whatever. But, Master Chief, and I showed up that morning and he's like, listen, the only Navy people that go to this school at this point are of the highest caliber. They don't fall out. They don't quit. Nobody will do that. And so we only send people that we know without a doubt physically can handle anything that's going to happen. So you have to do this test twice, literally like 2 times. It's like double everything that the normal test is. That's what you're going to do today. And I said, okay, let's do it. So I strapped shoes on and crushed the test. I did it right there, crushed the whole thing, did 4 miles, doubled up on every single thing, everything there was. And so, man, a week. So then I went back to the command, my hospital command, because this is unheard of, Paul. A hospital corpsman at a hospital going to jump school, that doesn't happen. I don't know if that's ever happened. I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe there's another corpsman out there that did it, but it doesn't happen. If it does happen, it's very, very, very rare. So I went to my master chief, same master chief, and when I went to the one all over, and I was like, you ain't gonna believe this one. I said, but I got a billet to jump school from Master Chief Pete Crawford. And he's like, he calls them. Obviously, they have the Master Chief conversation. And then we got to convince my people, my office where I'm at, that they're willing to let me go for 3 weeks to go to Fort Benning, Georgia. And it wasn't that easy. He had to jump through some hoops, I think, to get us there, to get me there. But he did, thankfully. He was always looking out for me. I always felt like I think maybe he saw something different in me. I don't know, but he just was always, I felt like I was always taken care of by him, you know? And so I left.
I would love to have heard the conversation, how he's trying to sell the need.
Yeah.
Corpsman, who's not currently in any pipeline
right.
for the special operations community that needs to go to jump school.
That's right.
How's that benefit the Navy?
That's exactly the conversation that he had to have. But he did it. And I was able to go. And, you know, jump school was cool. It was great. It was fun. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was necessarily difficult. It really wasn't. You know,
They all static line or free fall?
Static line. It's 5 jumps. You know, you do your ground week, tower week, and then jump week, right? The most annoying part of it was just the damn helmet you had to wear. You had to run everywhere in this helmet, and my traps on my neck the whole time were just these massive balls. It hurt so much over the entire 3 weeks. That was the hardest part of it all, to be honest with you. Like there was, but there was only, you know, jump school class is like 350 people, right? No one knows your name. If they know your name, that's not a good thing, right? They want to, your number is what you are. And I think there was like, you know, 25 SEAL recent BUDS graduates, because they had a pipeline that they had to go through back then. There was a couple, like 10 EOD dudes, and maybe a couple Marines that were in the recon pipeline. So anything outside of, you know, there are 300 Army soldiers, right? And then, you know, 40 of us Navy people, right? So you wore your colors, your service colors PT uniform for PT each morning. And, you know, I think the Army was wearing gray and black or something back then. Marines wear green on green, right? Well, Navy was blue on white, right? A white t-shirt and blue shorts, man. So there's no blending in. Like you stand out so much, right? And which is hysterical, because for that, it just put a bigger target on you when you're a PT. So in the morning, you know, all the Sergeant Airbornes, you call the instructors there, they come and they just brash you, you know, and they're just like, get up, get down. And every time you had to come to attention, you had to yell out, Airborne. You know, it was just we turned it into this comical thing, you know. We were just doing burpees, we're doing jumps and all these things. And then it was easy. Like, it wasn't hard. I honestly, it wasn't hard. And none of it was really a challenge. PT was just one of those things we laughed about. And they would get around us and yell and scream. I mean, I think at one point I had like 3 or 4 Sergeant Airborne surrounding me, screaming, get up, push, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just smiling. And that just drove them nuts, right? They're just trying to, but at that point, now you got something to say, right? This is Nate. We're not going to, Matt, you kind of told me that, like, you go there and you represent, like, you're representing the Navy, because only the best Navy come to this school, you know? So I felt like I had something I needed to definitely kind of just show to the Sergeant Airborne staff, you know? But we had one of the divers that I went with is another pretty funny story. This is one of my favorite stories about jump school. He was a little short dude, right? He was a gunner's mate, first class diver, awesome guy, awesome dude. But he was probably like 5'6", you know. I'm 5'10". At that point, I was like 195 pounds, you know. It was a pretty stout guy, quite a bit larger than this dude was, right? And on weekend, we had weekend duties, right? At CQ watch, you know, quarterdeck or whatever. I think that's what they call it. And you know, when you have duty on the weekends, it's all a number. You're assigned a number, right? That's your number the entire time you're there. And it's just a list with the watch bill is your number for that hour of watch or whatever. And I had, I had duty on Sunday afternoon, but I had a girlfriend in Pensacola at the time, and she came, you know, to visit with me and whatever. And she just dropped me off when it was time for me to have duty on Sunday. Right. So on Friday, when I'm leaving the barracks, my buddy, the other guy, the diver that I went to there with, he's departed, or he stops me because something I had of his was in my wall locker, and there's a lock on it. And I had dog tags on with the key on it. And he's like, dude, I need to get this or whatever. So I gave him my keys, and I was like, listen, I have duty on Sunday. So put my keys back underneath my pillow so that I can get in my wall locker for class or for duty. And he's like, okay, roger that.
Sure, I'll take care of it.
So we dip out, right? Gone for the weekend. I come back on Sunday, and he's not there. His truck's not in the parking lot. I go to his room. He's not there.
Your keys were though, right?
Keys are not even there. Of course not. Keys are not even there. And okay, my watch, I get a report at 11:45. It's 11:30, right? I don't have time to do anything. And I'm like, the thing is, if we gave them a reason to kick us out, they would kick us out. If your Navy was in front of your name on your name tag, if something as simple as missing a duty or a watch was grounds enough to kick you out of, disenroll you from jump school. So now I see this. That's what I see in my brain. If I miss duty, I'm getting kicked out of the school, and that's not happening, right? So I'm panic mode, man. I'm panic. I'm in his room. I'm tearing his room apart. I'm looking everywhere, see if he laid him down somewhere. No keys anywhere. I don't have time to get a bolt cutters from the duty or anything like that. You know, I'm looking around everywhere. Nothing. I go back into his room and I'm just sit down and I'm like, what am I going to do right now? What is happening right now? And I look on, cause everything I had, my uniform, everything is inside the wall locker, right? And so sitting on his bed is a set of his camis. He has a set of his camis sitting on the bed, folded nicely on the bed. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to do it. I was like, they only know me by number. They don't know me by my name. So, bro, I grabbed this dude's camis. Now, remember I told you the size difference in this guy, right? I put these trousers on and I put this top on, dude. You remember like, was it Farley in the Fat Man Little Coat? Dude, I was wearing camis that were like, the sleeves went to here. I barely was able to get the buttons closed. The pants barely tucked into I was the most ridiculous looking person in uniform you'd ever seen in your life. I mean, the uniform was easily 2 sizes too small for me, right? I didn't care. And so I go strutting down to the watch, right? And I'm like, 421 reported for duty. And they're looking at me like, what is wrong? You know, like, dude, are you? I'm like, what? What's wrong? I act like nothing wrong. I just like everything is normal, you know? And they're like, okay, you're standing right here on the main quarterdeck, and I have to answer to every single person that comes inside there. I'm like, this is gonna be great, man.
Nice uniform.
This is gonna be great.
Nice uniform.
So I sit down there, and I'm freaking every Sergeant Airborne. I'm standing up, boom, buttons are about ready to just burst, dude. And again, nobody knew that these were not my camis. They only knew me by a number, so they thought that was my name, my number. Nobody knew I was a third class, an E4, and I'm wearing a first class, you know, crow and dive pin and all this shit. People are asking me about dive school. I don't have a fucking clue about dive school, dude. And I'm like, making up some stuff about it, but I'm sitting there and they come in, and then about 3 hours into the watch, my buddy comes check back in, right? He comes back into the quarterdeck, and, I'm sitting there. And he comes in and he signs, and I stand up to report real loud to him. And I stand up real big in front of him, dude. And he's signing the thing, and he looks at me. He's like, Ramone, what are you doing, dude? And he's like, and then it all clicks in his brain, like he had forgot my keys and he had forgot everything. And he's like, I'm so sorry, dude. And he's like, but this is how you decided to proceed, bro. I was like, I wasn't gonna get kicked out of here, bro, for missing a duty. You know what I mean? So I told the guy, the other people on duty, I was like, I'm gonna go make a head call real quick, and I'm gonna go back. And this guy was dying laughing, dude. He was hysterically laughing at me the entire, like, the thought, what kind of mind did it take to wear a different uniform up here? And I said, bro, they only knew me by 421, bro. It made sense, you know, it worked. But man, that was, I didn't get kicked out. No one knew the better. I came back in my normal uniform, and nobody even noticed anything, you know. But yeah, that was probably my funniest time there at jump school. That was, you know, everything else other than that was pretty simple. But I left there, and then I went to Cuba. And then I went to Cuba shortly after that.
How long was that deployment?
6 months. And I actually was in charge of, there was a special missions kind of branch to the detainee camps that were there, where there were just lots of, the detainees, you know, high value people that were kind of more important than other detainees. It was a prison, man. Like, this was a working. Now, I went there after the times of like the chain link fences and the, you know, the pictures of them dogged up on like concrete slabs and stuff like that. It wasn't like that no more. Now they actually had, containers, they had facilities, they had cells, they had all these things. And so we were, that was another wild level of deployment. High visibility, you know, they were like little gold bars, those detainees. Nothing could happen to them, you know. It was very important. So medical had a very big eyeball on it, right? Like if anything is happening to these folks, you are taking care of them. But on that same breath, it was a working prison, man. Like these people were actually thinking there's a way to get out of this prison. These prisoners were. I mean, these are people that were captured in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? And now they're there. And they all thought like, so, I mean, they were hurting guards. They'd probe. They would do things to us. They'd spit on you, throw urine on you. You know, you do all these things. And if they didn't comply, they get like the warrant, you know, just like a normal working prison is really what it was. And if they didn't comply, then the team went in to kind of get them to comply, right? Physically get them to where they would comply. And, yeah, it was a tough one, man. It was tough in the sense that, again, the people that were coming to this were pulled out of a hospital. So you had girls, you had female corpsmen, you know, and man, what's that law where, what's it called when the prisoners make friends with their captors and they,
Fraternization?
No, fraternization. There's a theory. I can't remember it, but it's like they make friends with their captors and then they turn
Stockholm
on
syndrome?
Stockholm syndrome. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. That's exactly what was happening. So these prisoners would, make friends with us and they would communicate with us and they'd talk to us. Hey doc, what's going on? Hey doc. And they'd soften that kind of, you know, that awareness, you know, high level. We're supposed to be really on watch the entire time whenever you're around them. And they were kind of always a threat. You know, they would just try to do their best to soften that. And then corpsmen would get hurt oftentimes because we had more contact. I mean, we would evaluate them, you know, if they had ingrown toenails, if they had stomach issues, we had to do a stomach exam. You know, we'd listen to their stomachs. We do all these things. They definitely, it was an experience, man. It was an experience. And then the prisoners, you know, the special mission side. So we were like the transports. So when they were being sent off the island and back to their countries, you know, that was like a full on, you know, Con Air type scenario, man, where it was, you know, armed guards, armed buses lining the airway, you know, the flight line, you know, and getting these, you know, it was a turnover process. And
did medical staff go on the planes with them?
There were already medical staff on the airplanes. So the medical staff that were in there remained there.
Got it.
But yeah, so that was crazy. That was a while. They'd shut down all the streets to Gitmo's a very small base. You know, I think it's like 10 miles from one side to the other of it. 25 miles an hour, max speed through this, you know, it's very small. But outside of work, it was an awesome place. Like, man, we spearfished, we barbecued lobsters, dove, worked out. I mean, you know, outside of the working element to the deployment, it was a fantastic place to be. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, left there. And
did you ever end up getting to go to a dive school?
Never did, man. So when I was in Gitmo, I really worked closely with doctors and I worked with kind of that higher level of medical care, right? Outside of just corpsman kind of general duty type stuff. I was a part of kind of the medical diagnosis and treatment of patients and things like that. And I dug it. I dug kind of that higher level of knowledge when it came to medicine. And so, when I left Gitmo, I wanted to go, you know, for corpsmen, there's something called independent duty corpsman. And this is like the pinnacle. This is the highest level corpsman there is. It's almost as like, it works similar to that of like a PA. You know how a PA works under a doctor's license. They diagnose, they treat, they prescribe. The Navy has its operational providers called independent duty corpsmen that act in the same manner. I worked for a physician. I had an MPI number. You know, I diagnosed, I treated, you know. So anyways, I wanted to go do that when I left there. The sights of going to dive school and things like that, I didn't see that anymore. I wanted to now kind of achieve that next level of knowledge when it came to medicine, you know. And then, so when I left that deployment in Gitmo, I went back to Pensacola. So it just didn't happen right away, you know. It was time to rotate to sea duty. Even though I had deployed already a couple times on shore duty, it was still time to rotate and move, and the timing just didn't work out right. So I ended up finding my way back to the green side. I was back in Camp Pendleton. This time not with Division Marines, but with I don't know if you had ever heard of. There's a group of Marines called Anglico Marines, Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company Marines. high speed. You know, at this point, I had never heard of them, but they are a jump group, right? And so when I was able to show up to the MEF and have jump wings on and FMF experience with division, they were like, dude, you're going to Anglico. Like, if they ever have to jump, you've already been to jump school, so we're just going to send you to those guys. And they were kind of like, you know, in Camp Pendleton, there's the different compounds. You know, Camp Pendleton's massive, right? But you've got, you know, at that time it was Force Recon in their own little camps. You know, Anglico kind of existed in that realm, right? Our camps were the Anglico and Force Recon people. You know, that was just kind of where we existed. Our Sergeant Major was Force Recon God, you know, it's just massive, this amazing human being, just done it all in the Marine Corps. And they kind of took Anglico. I mean, they are an elite little group, man. Communicators, forward observers, JTACs, you know, that is like talking to aircrafts, and pilots, a couple pilots were there. We had some Navy aviation there too within the group, which is, they call them GLOW officers. Gun liaison officers. So they really work on, because part of our job or their skill set is to call in naval gunfire. So they have a few naval officers there within this group that if we have to work with the ships off the coast, right, calling in gunfire from naval ships, naval guns, that's why we had the naval officers there. So they were, I think by trade, they were surface warfare officers, so they had already lots of experience on the warships, understanding how to call for fire from a warship versus an aircraft or on the ground, you know, artillery or anything like that, like kind of what everybody else was doing, you know. But that didn't mean they didn't operate like it. Just like corpsmen, right? You operate at the level of the Marine, if not higher, right? And the expectation for those naval officers when we were at Anglico was the same exact thing. You will operate. This isn't surface warfare world. This isn't Blue Navy world. This is, in fact, a pretty elite little group, and it's very small, but just pipe hitters, man. I loved them all. They were fantastic, and I got there, and we deployed. And now they operate a bit differently than like kind of your larger Marine Corps assets, right? They work in small teams, so they have something called SALTs, supporting arms liaison teams, and they have FIX, fire control teams. So SALT was like 6 people. You had a, you know, platoon sergeant. You had a communicator for, you know, kind of everything. Doc, that's where I kind of existed, was in the SALT. And then you had your FIC teams, which were like your 3 people. You know, it was your forward observer, your JTAC, and your communicator. 3 people. That's it. And we went to the winds. You just spread out. And when you go to Iraq, or wherever you're being forward deployed, you're spread out and you never see the rest of your team or your command, really. Maybe you'll see them throughout if you cross paths, you know, moving to one location to another. But I ended up going back to Iraq in 2005. Now this time from not the medical side of the South. This time we were going to go do, you know, the good stuff we were always trained to do, right? So I went with my SALT. We went there, and man, we were everywhere. We did a lot of joint operations. We worked with a lot of Army, which was awesome. I had never really gotten to work with Army at all. And we supported 82nd Airborne element, and we supported them for a couple months, and we were running operations all over, you know, the Iraq-Syria border. We were everywhere. A lot of the cities were unoccupied. You know, we'd kind of go in there as initial security forces, and then once everything was good, we'd kind of roll out, or we'd go in and we had some high-value target type scenarios where we'd roll in at 2 a.m, you know, helo insert, do what you have to do, and then go try to find this bad person, and then helo extract, you know, find a field, go helo extract. And so we got to do some high-speed fun stuff, man. It was a lot of fun. And it was eventful. It was quite eventful. Yeah, it was a lot of places that we were going. No American forces had been there yet. So, you know, they were preparing for this for a long time, right? So IEDs and all the things that are just really bad out there, you know, just a lot of these cities were kind of prepared for us arriving there. And so, you know, we felt that, you know, I can remember probably the biggest loss that we saw there was, you know, at 3 a.m. vehicle. It was one of our first missions, and we went in vehicle. It was a vehicle insertion. It was a lot of vehicles. We were going in to make our presence known within the city. And every single road pretty much, and even the fields surrounding the city were just strewn with IEDs. And it was, I was in my truck with my Marines, just amidst the convoy, and within about a couple vehicles in front of me, just this monster major explosion. You see IED was hit. It was an ammo truck. It hit this IED, and it was just a bad scenario, man. And it was just everything inside incendiary. Everything was cooking off, so you couldn't get to the vehicle to assist in any way. Unfortunately, we lost everyone in that vehicle that evening, that night. But being just 2 vehicles away, and then in response mode, trying to help, trying to do something, man, that was a challenge. That was a tough night. That was a big hit. And I just met before we left on that mission, I had met the doc that was inside there. I had met the people that were inside the vehicle, but I didn't know them that well before we started, but we had spent so much time with the entire group afterwards that we really felt it more, right? We really felt that loss without necessarily knowing. Obviously, they're our brothers in arms, right? So that right there was powerful enough. But coming to learn and meet everybody else within that 82nd, they were just, it was an amazing group, right? No matter what I had heard about Army in the past, whatever people want to say about the differences in forces, this group operated at a high level, and we went in there and we did a lot of missions, and we were busy, and we made a lot of difference. They had an ATL, Advanced Trauma Life Support team, that was there, and the PA, he was a PA that was in charge, was a prior corpsman. So when I showed up there, he was just stoked. He was just fired up because he knew, I told him my background. He knew exactly what I was capable of. And he's like, you're running with me everywhere we go. I've got my medics are here. But everywhere I go, you're with me, and we're going to go do what we need to do. And we did a lot. We did a lot, man. There were a couple instances, all the life-saving measures that you got to take when you're in combat, major gunshot wound, blast injuries, things like that. We had one day where we're sitting we were in a compound. It was a school. We're sitting in this building. So it was there's like an open corridor in the front, right in the middle. And then there's the building is set up in kind of a U shape, right? And it was an old school, abandoned school. And we're sitting there. And my team, my Marine Corps team, our Anglico team, was Assault, had a corner spot to this building. That was our room. And now, this is combat, right? And I had been to it once before. I'd seen, up to that point, I'd still been through you grow accustomed to gunshots and things, right? This is just something you hear and that's present. You learn, you hear it so often, you begin to learn what the sound of the weapon is, right? You learn if it's if that's a 50 cal cooking off, or if it's an AK cooking off, or a Mark 19 cooking off, right? Or, just by the virtue of the sound, the distinct sound that it makes. So, we're on one afternoon, it seems to be pretty quiet. Everything is out there. This is in a city. And we're sitting there, and I hear rounds cooking off in the distance, right? Like it's off, and I'm sitting there and I'm playing rummy. I'm in skivvy. I'm in my little green skivvy shorts, right? And I got a little t-shirt on. My 2 Marines are sitting there with me, and we're playing rummy, dude. Like, that's how chill it was right now at this point. And we're sitting there, and I hear the rounds just going off in the distance, and I'm like, someone's getting after it. Like, yeah, probably contact somewhere between another group, whatever. No big deal. Like, no thoughts at all. And then, it's getting louder, right? So if the sound is getting louder, then this means it's getting closer, right? And I tell this to the Marine. I'm like, I look at my dudes, I'm like, you guys, I think maybe we should do something. Like, maybe we need to get dressed. Like, this is it's getting closer to us, and he's like, again, it's that, whatever, doc, shut up, doc. You're just trying to be, I heard that so many times. You hear that so many times in your career as a corpsman, right? But this is one of those instances where they're just like, whatever, doc, whatever. And I'm like, no, it's like, this is, I think we should get dressed. I really think this is serious. Like, we need to do something. My spidey sense is tingling, right? Like, something's about to go down. You know what I mean? So I hear this for just a couple more minutes, and then I go to look up at the window, there's a window that's sitting right there. It's overlooking kind of that corner, eastern corner, whatever that was. And I go to look in the window, and as I'm looking in the window, there's on top of the corner building right there, black draped person standing there, an RPG. And I watched this RPG come straight, like over our building was here, and it just misses the corner of our building. The room that we're in just misses it and impacts in the center of the compound, and we're all under attack. And everything, all hell's breaking loose, right? Like, we're getting it from all angles, and you got the machine gunners are piping, everyone's running, and the whole time I'm in the room, I'm yelling like, I told you, mother, I told you. And everyone's like freaking trying to put their gear on. I mean, as fast as we possibly can. I'm yelling at them. I freaking told you, we all get it kitted up. We're all good to go. We're ready. We roll out the door. And right away they're calling for our team because we're communicators. We can talk to air on station. We have connections, right? Like, we're bringing in, we're putting warheads on foreheads, man. Like, we're dropping helo, whatever's on air, on station, we're controlling it, right? So we got to get dressed fast. We get in our vehicle. We get in our Humvee. We're getting ready to roll out of this compound. And there was a soldier who was there. He was kind of watching that entry point to our compound. And he's like, dudes, like, stop. Somebody just ran across the road and dropped a bag right in the center of the road, right? And it's got like this box shape to it. It's your classic, like, obviously this is some sort of bomb or something, right? Some device to keep us from moving, or they're going to blow it. Oftentimes, if an IED was like above the ground, there was some sort of a trigger person, right? There was somebody that was standing by watching from a distance, and it was all timing thing, right? If it was underground, then it was generally pressure detonated, right? You drove over it, you stepped on it, whatever. With this being on top of the ground, so we just waited about a minute to see if it was just a timer that would maybe, nothing happened. So, and I'm like, we got to go. Now there's casualties being called out over the radio. Now the ATLS they're calling for me to go support wherever they're at, to meet the casualties wherever they're at. And I'm like, well, we got to go. And we're like, okay, so where the bag was on the road, right? It was a little bit further. It was closer to the left-hand side. So we had the most space on the right-hand side of the road, right? So I was like, hightail this thing, dude. You just go as fast as we possibly can. Whatever between the 50 or 75 feet that we have between here and there, you're going to need to go as fast as we can in hopes that if they do blow this thing, that it's either behind us or it's in front of us, or it's just not going to affect us. But I remember this very clearly because I'm like, okay, we ready? Like, everybody gets pumped up inside the vehicle, you're all like, you ready? Okay, let's go. And then he just, he floors it, Humvee type. They can't spin out too much because of the way they're designed, right? But we get up over there and we fly by this thing. And I remember just like, like as we drive by it, me and the driver, because I'm right behind the driver. So it's on my side. And I'm just like, waiting for this blast to go, and nothing went. Thank God nothing went off, man. And we're just like, whoa, but it was like, whew, man, everyone was like, good. Okay, let's go. And, we ran into a scenario where it was kind of like what a lot of people have probably seen this in movies where roads were blocked, right? These guys knew what they were doing. They were directing traffic towards different ambush locations and things. So they had blocked roads with burning tires or whatnots, whatever. And it was all an effort to try and just disrupt any path that we thought we knew we could take, right? Because we thought based off of a map, right, that told us we can go down this road. Well, then we get down that road and now you can't get there, right? And they know that they're attacking somebody on the other side of that road. Like, they weren't idiots, man. Right. Like, if people think like they're just our enemies, were just not smart.
At the end of the day, you're playing in their backyard.
That's right. They live. This has been fortified and well ready for our presence, right? They're ready for this. And so, there were casualties that came out, and we had to create like kind of this location of where to pick them up or go treat them, go find them. So we had to connect. We were telling, it was just on the outskirts of the city. It's this little big open field. Meet us at this field. Bring your casualty to that field. I'll meet you there. The rest of the ATLS guys, we're all on comms. We're all going to meet you at this field, right? And so we get there. We finally get to this field. We get to the field. We see the casualties. It's two soldiers, gunshot wounds. I want to say one was like through the thigh, maybe one through the abdomen. because we did a needle decompression on the guy with the abdomen wound. But we all kind of went to work on this guy, right? And everyone's doing our thing. And then we're calling in, now I'm on the hook with Hilo for medevac, calling medevac to come in and get it. But we're in troops in contact all around us. So there's reluctancy, right, to bring an aircraft anywhere close to land. Now to drop fire, sure, but to land was a bit, weary on that side. So they ended up landing about a couple football fields away from us, right? Like pretty far away. And my Humvee that I had was a hatchback. So it wasn't suited to carry a casualty inside it, right? And we had 2 Humvees to be able to transport these guys. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, one truck's going to take the other guy to the helo, and we got to take our casualty. And I'm thinking, dude, we can't hump this. Like this guy with full battle rattle on a stinking stretcher, going through mud and all the things that are surrounding, the fields of like just any Iraqi city is just mud, rice paddy life, right? That would be quite a feat, right? It would be a lot. So I was like, dude, we can't put it in the back. I said, listen to me. We're going to put him on the hood. We're going to put the hood on the Humvee. So we take this dude, we lift him up, and the Humvee is parked, and we put him on the hood of the Humvee. I'm standing on the wheel well, holding on here, holding him down on top. There's another Marine on the other side of him, and we're driving through this field trying to get this casualty to the aircraft to get medevac to get out of here, But I mean, it was the most wild thing because it needed to happen, right? A decision had to be made. We got to do something. And I was like, dude, this is the simplest decision that I can think of right now. And we're going to do it. And hopefully he doesn't fall off, right? Hopefully that's pray. But I remember his face, this soldier's face is like, yo, you better not drop. Like, this is not going to, you're doing what? What are you doing with me? It was pretty funny. When we got done with it, it was pretty funny. Everyone talked about it later on, but it was, man, it was wild, right? We got him on there. It worked though. It worked. We got him through over to the helicopter. We got him boarded. Both casualties were taken off and they survived, thankfully. I think all of our actions combined, a lot of the Army, again, I was the only corpsman there. It was Army medics going to work here, it was just, they did a fantastic job, they just did amazing. And, man, and then it just seemed like everything ended. Like they left, the helo left, casualties left, and then everything just kind of like died off and everything was just quiet on the net and it was eerie. It was back to going to play cards, right? And so that's kind of what happened, We were just like, man, you these highs and these lows are just incredible. You're in the highest alert mode you can be, and then instantly you're just like, okay, what do we do? So we go back and we got cigars, everyone's just kind of like, oh, that was good. Like we made that one work. That was a win, We finished up that mission, and this was this was something they didn't have to do, but they did. And we got back. We did a ceremony for those soldiers that were lost in that IED. Remember, it was very emotional. It was a big deal. And then later we went into a formation where they called us to be there. They wanted us to be there. So we went into this formation. It was all the 82nd Airborne guys. They're all there, and they read out this award. And it was so their medics, like kind of their version of like a combat action ribbon for the medics is the combat medical badge, right? You showed combat medical under fire type deal. And they, this is what they get, but we showed up at this formation and they called me out to the front of this formation and they read the CMB, the passage, the award, for the actions taken on that day, you know what I mean? And it was like, for that doc, for that PA, that he said, everybody, they were like, this is the first time we've ever awarded this to a Navy corpsman, and what you did on that day was absolutely huge, you know what I mean? And so, but just to be honored in that way, to hold on to have that piece of their heritage and their legacy and to be able to have that and be given that was just, it was most humbling. It was just the most incredible experience ever. I'll never forget that. And it was again, another award that wasn't There isn't a Navy regulation on it. I don't ever get to wear that thing, and I don't ever need to wear it anymore. The same with the Super Squad badge. Like these are kind of things that I was just in the right place at the right time. I was in the right condition. And I was able to provide, right? I wasn't ever, people have told me like, oh, you're lucky. You're always lucky, dude. Everything seems that has happened to you. And I'm like, nah, I think you've probably heard this. There's no such thing as luck, right? When opportunity meets preparation. When these two things happen, it on the outside, sure, it looks like, this was something that was of luck, but no, this was always part of some plan that was supposed to happen. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I kind of think of those experiences, right? Like I was prepared and I was prepped and I was always being groomed without ever knowing for that exact day. You know what I mean? And it's so great because I still talk to that PA today. That was 2006 we're talking. I still talk to that PA 20 years from now. Him and I still talk to each other. Through my daughter's cancer, he talks with me. He helps me. He sends me stuff. We talk. He's there for me if I ever need him. But, yeah. So, there's the normal service conflicts that exist out there. Army, Marines, this and that. I'll tell you what, man, like I have a lot of love and appreciation for the Army, man. I think that they are, not everything, just like anything, not everybody's built the same, not every unit's built the same, whatever the case is. But I'll tell you what, they were an amazing group. And that's another experience in their career that, I tell my sons, I've told my sons a bit about this, but a lot of this is things that I just want to tell all my kids about, you know what I mean? And so they can see these things and understand what's in my office, right? In my office is just a whole bunch of things, and the big shiny things or big dull black things. And they don't understand necessarily what all it is, but, yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing. So, and then we just ran a whole bunch more missions, man. You show up. Our team was cool because it just shows, you're supporting anybody and everybody that needs JTACs, so, there were a couple instances where we were just told to be at a flight line at 2 a.m. and you're getting on a CH, 130 or something with a whole bunch of dudes with beards and blacked out. And you're like, there's no seats even in this helicopter. Everyone's strapped in with a carabiner and a belt and something, and they're just like, you're Doc? Okay, Doc, this is what we're going to do. And it was just awesome stuff, man. It was stuff that I just never imagined in my life that I'd ever get to be a part of, right? And I was able to. And so it was just, and I was ready for it all. I wanted every single ounce of it. I loved all of the things that we did.
So taking you back around to that Bahrain deployment,
sure.
You mentioned everything that happened because of COVID and the impact it had on your family. But heading into that deployment, did you already know that was going to be your last one and you were going to retire? Or did everything that happened with COVID push up your retirement?
No, so great question. But no, I knew I was going to retire. Like I knew that.
When it comes to sunglasses, first responders and military members definitely don't baby them. They get dropped, thrown in a utility pocket, or tossed in gear bags. Frontline Optics was created for that reality. You get premium eye protection without paying designer brand prices for something that won't survive your lifestyle. From polarized UV 400 lenses to anti-reflective coatings and water-repellent finish. And here's where Frontline Optics separates themselves from the pack. When life happens and your glasses break, they offer a no-questions-asked replacement program, even for prescription lenses. On top of that, Frontline Optics was founded by a firefighter, and a portion of every purchase goes to support the First Responders Children's Foundation, helping families of those who gave everything. So if you're looking for sunglasses that look good and come from a company that actually understands the job, visit frontlineoptics.com and use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your purchase. Frontline Optics, from a first responder for the front lines.
Previous to that, I had a bunch of surgeries in the Navy. I broke my hip and I had actually 2 total hip replacements in 2000. So my right hip was replaced in 2018, and then in September of 2019, my left hip had to be replaced. So that puts you in like kind of that limb due medical period, right? It was a year right there of recovery that I had to take. And so when I made an attempt to retire then, because I thought I was going to retire a bit sooner, 21 is what I was looking at. Navy kind of got me. They kind of were like, dude, you owe me another year. And to make this work, we need you to kind of do this, or you can get out. Now, I was 19 years and like 6 months. I'm not getting out, right? So I'm going to do what was needed of me. And think, maybe I knew it was a business play. I mean, I knew it was happening. I was a part of it. And so, at that point, the orders that I needed to, the only availability they gave me were Bahrain. And
now,
so,
that 18-month deployment, was that the longest stretch deployment you ever did?
Yeah. So that technically wasn't even considered a deployment. It was just considered overseas duty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So simply a duty station.
Duty station. Yeah. That's the way they saw it. So yeah. And it was a struggle. Maybe, I don't know. My wife probably says it different. I don't know how she sees it all, but, I had every opportunity to probably find a way to get out of that. Probably could have, and if I look back, I just had 2 hip replacements. I had some major stuff happen, right? So could have said my hip hurts and I can't do this or I can't do that. But I knew this was going to be my last tour. And I knew that, my mindset from the moment I had walked in the door of the Navy was, I'm going to do everything till the very end. I'm never going to not give up. I'm going to do everything that I can. And I just couldn't do that for this. Even though I knew it was going to take me away from my family, it was somewhat of a selfish decision where there's no way I can end my career dodging something or not, find up some reason not to go, And so I was like, this is where a little bit of a disagreement between my wife and I, which set the kind of the tone, right? She didn't want me to be there in the first place. So, and she knew that I had chosen to go instead of choosing to be home with my family, right? So I think we were kind of set up for some challenges from the get-go,
You mentioned that when you came off that deployment or that assignment, you heading into your retirement, you already had your next job lined up.
Mm-hmm.
So along that transition component of planning and preparing, how did you go about securing that? Was it something that just kind of fell in your lap, or did you go looking for it?
So this is where, I tell all retirees, people are getting, rely on your network, because our network is far and it is wide, and asking for help. It's okay. This is the time. There are people there that they feel like it's their duty to help you, right? And people feel this way, right? And people, and if we don't ever ask for help, then people will never, ever know that we ever need it, right? And so getting it out there, letting, I used LinkedIn, I used that, letting people know I was retiring soon. And it turns out that one of my old commanding officers, I had stayed in contact with him for many years, and he was the one that knew this company. He had worked with this company, and he's like, I think you would be a perfect fit for this job. And interview, I did my interview overseas. It was over the phone, and it was, I was in Bahrain, and they were, in Maine, or Boston, we were there at, and did my interview over there. They gave me a couple different options for the job itself, and
what was the specific function that
so I was I was a business development specialist. Right?
Okay.
And I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know. I mean, the organization itself, I knew that they did workshops and things like that for people or for tactical athletes. They were bringing some awesome stuff to a lot of the first responder community, military community. And I was like, the way I saw it was like any ability to be a part of that is, and, it was, my role there was, business development, which is sales, right? Which, and this is an elite training, elite support that they're providing. It's not necessarily, it's got a price tag, right? And where I think I was really good. I'm really good at connecting and talking to people, right? But, man, I just wasn't a good salesman. Like when it came to, I could talk prices, I could talk all these quotes and all these things, and I do all these things, but just wasn't a good salesman, man. Like I didn't make sales. I didn't. And you know what I mean? And I would love to help with workshops, and I would assist, and I would help build all of the project stuff, connect, call, fly. I was all about all those things. I loved it all. But at the end of the day, I just didn't, I didn't make sales, and that's a requirement. That's your job. That's what you're there to do. That's your requirement, man. Right. And I just didn't make that. Right. And then my daughter's cancer diagnosis came kind of in the middle of that year, which also was a contributing factor, right? And she was diagnosed. I was actually going to fly out the next day. I was supposed to fly to Denver to go, I don't know if it was a workshop. I think it was a workshop that I was supposed to go assistant lead or something like that. And my wife, she was like, something's wrong with Lily. Something's wrong with her. And I'm going to take her to the hospital. And I can't remember. Or no, she wasn't going to take her to the hospital. She was worried. And I said, take her to the hospital so that I don't want to fly away and you be worried about something that's going on with Lily. Lily had bruising. She complained of this random hip pain that was coming out of nowhere.
And she's how old at this point?
3 years old. And really was like, she started limping really hard, really badly, and it didn't make any sense. There was nothing that would have caused these things. So my wife took her to the ER. And then I've told you, so I came from Navy medicine, right? So like Google really is just, Google MD sucks, right? Like it can just send your brain to everywhere bad in the world when it comes to anything medicine, right? It just takes you to the worst case scenario.
Don't say that.
Right?
Dr. Google is amazing.
Yeah. So, but she does that, right? She sees the symptoms of things and she starts pulling up these symptoms and they all of a sudden she starts seeing stuff about leukemia. And she doesn't tell me over the phone this is what she's thinking, but she had done this. I get home. I can't remember where I was at, but I got home and I go to she's like, I think you need to be here in the ER with me. And so I go to the ER with her. I'm not even thinking anything. If I'm thinking anything, this is some sort of a contusion, right? Or some sort of a just minor injury that could have occurred as a child was running around.
She fell. She's a 3-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were in there in the ER and we see she brings it up. She shows me that that's something that she sees. And my brain automatically is like, no. That's absurd. Like, stop thinking that way. Like, don't put that in the air type scenario, But, man, just about an hour later, the doctor came in. They had run her labs, and her white blood cells were just like 50,000 or something like that. Like, they told us right there, they're like, your daughter has leukemia, and it was man, you hear news like this and you're not prepared for that,
There's absolutely no way to be prepared for it.
My wife immediately, she immediately is just broken down, she's crying, all the things. And I can just recall being kind of numb, just like, oh my gosh, this can't be, like, this isn't it. Of course, are you sure? Like, what is telling you this, and then they told me all these things and I'm just in this weird state of, it's just like kind of like a fog that just came over right away. And they're like, Lily needs to be transported to a hospital right now. And this is at like midnight, and so TRICARE, I'm retired, right? So I got TRICARE for retirees. It's military insurance.
Is there a genetic component to leukemia?
They test for it. But we don't have any. I have no family history of cancer. My wife has no family, maybe an extended history, like none. It's nowhere in existence for us in any of our family history profiles, cancer at all. So, to know that this was genetic coming from us necessarily, that didn't make any sense to us, when there's so much testing that happening right away, we ended up going to Navy Hospital Balboa in San Diego, which technically, because of, I had TRICARE standard, right? So I see doctors out in town. My families have only ever seen civilian doctors. They haven't seen Navy medicine doctors, right? So this is the first time that I've ever been to Navy. And even though I am Navy medicine right now, my children and family, now at its worst time, we're about to be taking care of by Navy medicine providers. We get to Balboa. We get admitted that day. The doctors come down and it's super traumatic, right? Super sad, everyone's crying. Still in this major fog, what's going on. But then I start I start kind of operationalizing this already, right? Because we're wired. This is the way I'm wired, right? Like, is this the right place to be? That's my instinct is like, so I bring the commander aside, and now they know me though. Like, people in this hospital, because of one, like my reputation, kind of, because in the West Coast, right? If it doesn't, good or bad, right? There is something there. Well, a lot of these people knew who I had deployed with one of the commanders that was going to be taking care of my daughter. I had deployed him when we were in the Red Sea together, right? So these people knew that I was a chief, that I was an IDC, that I had this background in the Navy. And so there was that kind of inherent respect right there off the front, top rope. They were giving me that. And I pulled the commander outside, and I was like, here's the scenario. Here it is. I don't have to be here. And right now I could make the decision to go to Rady, San Diego. I said, but I need you to tell me, Commander, like, are you going to save my daughter's life, or do we have to go somewhere else? And it's perfectly okay if you tell me that you're unable to save my daughter's life. And I'm okay with this, but don't keep us here because you think you might be able to. And then we get dragged out and this turns out like, this isn't the game that we're going to play. And he's like, we're going to save your daughter. I said, okay. And I'm putting all my trust in you. I'm going to trust you that you're going to take every single step that's needed. You're going to take every test that's needed. We're going to do whatever it takes to get her to okay. And he gave me that commitment to me, and it was that moment that right there, that bond was unbreakable bond that had just been created with the commander. And he says, okay. I was like, okay, then I'm on your team. I'm on your side and I support everything that we're going to do. So that's kind of the way I went into this right away, not yet thinking, she has a ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, precursor B. There's a lot of different cancers, right? Pediatric ones. Some are, prognosis is not as good as others. Thankfully, ALL does have a lot of children survive this and they do okay. So instantly right then and there, I'm not thinking like my daughter is going to die right now. I don't think that. I wasn't thinking that way. I was thinking, we're going to save her. Like, I got the right team with me to do this. And
is it attacked through chemotherapy?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100% chemo. It was all chemo initially. And so we went through this, man. We went through this. We were in it right away. It's been, we fast forward to today. Lily had so she beat it. Okay. She beat it. Don't fast forward. Let's rewind. Okay. Lily beat it. She beat it within that first year. We got her in remission, right? Cancer was gone. And we just believed in our hearts that this was gone forever. We're all ready. And she was like a year in remission, right? And we were like ready to, what people don't know about cancer is that it's just not over when someone goes into remission. When a child and even an adult goes into remission, okay, that means no cancer is present left in their body, but the level of treatment is for 2.5 years. It used to be 5 years, just the progress that we've made in medicine and things like that. Now it's about 2.5 years for every pediatric cancer case. Once they're in remission, it's a 2.5 year total. So we're kind of prepared for that. Right now we're a year into this. And, we got that horrible phone call that she had relapsed, that cancer cells were found again. And man, that was, when you get a call like that, man, the first time I thought that she wasn't going to die, right? We can beat this. We're going to do this. But then you hear the call, you get a call that's back again. And now this is where that little evil thought begins to creep in and find its way into your thought process all day, every single day. I was now personally myself, my wife and I, remember I told you we weren't great after I retired. I mean, we were in a challenge, right? And we were still sorting this out. And then all of a sudden we're not good. Our daughter is now diagnosed with cancer and now we have to figure this shit out. Right. And her and I weren't so good. We're just trying to now be there for the boys. I don't know if I don't know how much I should tell my sons. I don't want all these things to go through as parents. You're thinking like, how do we proceed? you still got to be a parent, but your child has cancer. You don't want to give her everything in the world that she wants, because I didn't rest my laurels on that she was going to just not be here anymore. Right? I didn't want to think about her life not being here anymore. Right. And so I didn't. I just told myself not to think that. Right. And I remained to try to find the positive, every single tiny little win that we possibly can have. And I have to go back to just one portion of all of this was kind of my faith. Right now, I will tell you that I've had my, when I retired from the Navy, faith was not present in my life whatsoever. None. I have my reasons why I didn't have faith. I had a lot of questions. I've seen a lot of loss. I've seen a lot of things. My dad dying. I wouldn't say I was over that yet. I was just a lot of things that happened, and I didn't have faith. And we went into this cancer thing with no faith. Throughout it was really weird. Like I was born, I was baptized Catholic when I was a child, right? So I'd been to church just for a little time frame when I was a kid, but never as an adult, never throughout the Navy. It was never religious or even thought. In Iraq, you pray, right? When you're about to something's about to bad happen, you're like, please don't let this be my day, right? Pray, Lord, give me strength. You say those things, in those dire times. But now we're facing the biggest challenge ever. And I was in a struggle, man. I'll be honest. I was smoking, I was drinking, stopped working out, really let myself go because I was in such a state of anxiety. I mean, you talk about living at the red zone all day, every single day of your life. Like you don't get to go home when you leave the hospital and not be in that zone anymore. You still operate in that zone. And, physiologically, right? Let's talk about cortisol and what it does to our bodies. It's a catabolic, right? It destroys us, right? And trying to find happiness in just the small things was really just about for her. It was her just trying to make her happy. And, cancer came back. At this point in time, they're like, I wouldn't even say that now my faith is even questioned. I'm right back to this questioning state, right? Right as I'm trying to I'm praying a lot. I'm not in a well state. I'm upset. It's funny. I had this when we were home, there was this Jehovah Witness. They come to your door and they knock on your door and now I'm not Jehovah Witness, you know what I mean? But I always felt bad, just not talking to them or whatever. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to talk to this guy and I'm going to tell him all the things that I think is wrong with religion, right? And because this is all the questions that I had, I'm going to make him answer these questions for me. And that first time he showed up, I laid it on him, right? I laid a lot on him. And he just continued to give me his, from his religion, his answers to these questions about God and the way he saw it and the way he's in our lives and things like that. And I thought that this dude was never going to come back. I'll be honest with you. I mean, after what I put him through for that 1 hour conversation on my front porch, I thought he was going to come back. The dude came back every single weekend, and he came back every single weekend. And I still wasn't giving in though. I was not giving in, it was there. And this is another struggle between my wife and I. My wife is very religious. She's always been that way. And the reason why it wasn't in our life and in our family was because of me. It was me. I was the reason why. I didn't see peace in it. I didn't see purpose in going to church. I didn't see any of these things. And that was one of our looking back now, that was one of the biggest conflicts between us that I didn't see back then,
I'm not trying to generalize or God, I'm drawing a blank on what word I want to use. But religion, when you think about it, is the only thing that really divides us in this world.
True. Yeah.
So to think that it could divide a country and it wouldn't divide a family.
Yeah. And the division occurred because I was the one against it. I didn't believe in it. She did. And so, we're proceeding through Lily's second diagnosis, right? And I start to make this change, man. I start to get to this point where I realize that I don't have everything it's going to take to get through this. And I realized I started to see this, that no matter what I've been through in my life, I don't possess enough to get through this diagnosis. So we have to find a bone marrow match for my son or for my daughter. My sons get tested, siblings get tested first, to be in hopes that there'll be a match. And my oldest son was a perfect match. He was 7, right? 7 at the time. Oh my gosh, like this is a gift from God, right? This is just, oh my gosh. And at this point, we were taken in by a charity here in the Inland Empire, Temecula charity. It's called Charity for Charity. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but we were nominated by an amazing friend. They brought us in. They adopted us. They picked Lily as one of the beneficiaries for 2023, I think it was. 2023. Very faith-based charity, right? And all of a sudden, our lives are kind of surrounded by it now, right? And I'm like, this instinct to fight it before, like I always was slowly going away. And it was slowly being overshadowed by this now what appeared to be like this, like, I'm in your face, Ramone. And it ain't going, I'm not going anywhere. Like, this is how I felt he was talking to me. Like, these people were coming into our lives for deliberate purpose to help get us, like, it's crazy. We pray and we ask for God for certain things, right? And then when he doesn't answer it exactly the way we want it to, we're like, man, where are you? Like, what are you doing? But what I've learned is that that's not how prayers are answered. It's crazy to say, but my wife and I we were in our worst, we were in dire straits. My family was separated. We were crumbling. And instead of just solving that problem right there, cancer was introduced into our life. And rather than today, me think about cancer as just this horrible thing, which it is. But I will tell you that the most beautiful things that I've ever experienced in my lifetime have come from this cancer diagnosis. My family today is as strong as it's ever been. My level of faith, God found his way in, and he used my daughter as this vessel, as this testimony. And today I can't see my now life without faith, right? My son donated his bone marrow. She beat cancer again. And we thought we were good to go. We were happy. About 100 days later, she relapsed again. And now this one was really hard now because I had been fighting the death thoughts of my daughter not being here. I still had some nightmares and things like that. Like I didn't want to go to sleep because I held her, like she slept with me. She slept with my wife and I right in the middle of her. And I wanted to be the very last thing she saw when she went to sleep. And then I wanted to be the very first thing she saw when she woke up. So for me, that meant no sleep. Like I'm going to do whatever, and that is detrimental to a person when they think this way. And I, that's kind of where I was at, you know what I mean? But as I began to bring this faith back into my life, I started to feel stronger, but physically I still was not well. I did finally stop drinking. I stopped smoking, all those things, just there was no need for it anymore. I was trying to make those own personal change. Still way overweight. Last, year and a half ago, I was 280 pounds, man. It's just worst probably that I've ever been, and I was like, Lily relapsed that third time. She went through CAR T-cell therapy, CD cell 19. It worked. Got her back again, destroyed that cancer. And then, man, happened again. We got another phone call, another relapse. This time I had traveled to go teach and not working for that company. I stopped working for that company that first year, after her first diagnosis. 6 months after that, I parted ways, respectively with that company. So I couldn't be away. Obviously I couldn't travel. So I could be home. Picked up some other government contractor gigs here in the local area, San Diego and so forth, that allowed me to be home. So anyways, I thought, what was I thinking? But I was thinking about the fear now, because with every new relapse, any answer, the likelihood that the answers are not going to work, and it just gets lower and lower and lower and lower. And then an inevitable, you don't want to say it's the inevitable, but you begin to think that it is the inevitable. Lily had relapsed that third time. beat it. It comes back a fourth time. Came back a fourth time. She gets a second bone marrow transplant. Now this was a stem cell. This was umbilical. You know, women when they have babies, they donate the umbilical cells, and there was Lily had a match, and the cells came out of Texas, out of some bank in Texas, and they matched, and she beat it. Man, she beat it again. And I'll tell you this journey though, right? This journey of up and down, and we're good, and then we're not good, and this last round though was boy, that was a doozy. That was a scary one where there weren't many options left, and they said we're going to put Lily up for a clinical trial. So a clinical trial, right, isn't medicine or treatment that's completely approved, right? It has to go through all kinds of test subjects. It's got to go through a lot of things, and there's risk when you take these clinical trials. And you kind of accept that risk when you know, like, she's going to live. We're going to do whatever it takes. The mindset was we're going to do whatever it takes to win. And so my wife and I agreed that we would partake in it. The clinical trial was in Philadelphia, at CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And it was scary because we had only been at, we left Navy Hospital too after that first year. When she relapsed, they said us, we've done all that we can. She's got to go to Rady San Diego. So she's all this time, all these relapses all occurred while we were at Rady San Diego, which is fantastic, by the way. They're just the most incredible human beings on the planet. The nurses, the doctors, they'll be our lifelong friends forever in this lifetime. But Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, we're headed there, and we get approved. She matches. We approve. We prepare her. We go there. We've heard nothing but good things. I think Lily was like number 650, maybe something like that, child to receive this treatment. And it was all like good stuff that we had heard. And she gets the treatment, and that first night, so it came in 2 doses. So it comes in day 1 dose of the CAR-T22 cell, the trial treatment. And then it's the second day you get the treatment. If she makes it through 24 hours, okay, safely with this first treatment, then the second day she can receive the second half. So it's like 25% and then 75% if you look at it from a volume perspective of how much of the medicine she's receiving. She gets it that first night, and she catches a major fever that night. And that's immediate indicator. She's now not going to receive the next day's dose. So I'm at home. So I was in Philadelphia by myself. Lily and I are there in the room. My wife was back home with the boys, preparing. About 2 weeks from then, she was going to come out to meet us. And in my brain, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I can handle this fever. I'm going to cool her down. I'm going to do all these things. I'm trying to express some sort of control over this cancer, over this response, so that she can get that treatment tomorrow. Because in my brain, that's what she has to get to survive, to win. And then I'm just sitting there, and it's like midnight, and I'm watching her. Lily's just in this fever. She's just full on fever, man. 103, and I'm like, I pray, and I pray, and I pray, and I'm crying at this point. I'm just having this emotional, like, because as parents, as fathers, right, as just as men in general, you just want to have this sense of control, and the unfortunate piece of cancer is that we have no control over this. And what was happening to her body, I had no control over this. And I had this just moment, this epiphany, where, I was like, I'm going to take her to the hospital. We took her to the hospital. She was admitted. We didn't do the other half of treatment. And then we had a couple days of coming home every day, and she seemed to be okay. And about a week later, everything started to go the wrong direction, and the cells began to destroy her organs and began to attack the rest of her body. Lily was admitted, and my wife had arrived. She had come with the boys, so we're all in Philadelphia together. And it got really serious, really bad. Vital signs are all bad, and she got admitted to into the ICU. So we go to the ICU, closer monitoring. It was 24/7 monitoring in the ICU, and Now, the thing about CHOP, man, these are the best there is. These are the best doctors there. I am convinced these are the best pediatric doctors there are in the entire country or here in Philadelphia. And we're there, we're in the ICU, and things are just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And Lily starts screaming out. She's screaming. She's like, her neurological state is diminishing. The cells are taking over her body, taking over her liver, taking over all these things. And we're just watching her. We can't give her medicines. We can't give her a lot of things because the doctors need to see kind of what's transpiring, what's happening. And then there was a night, there's our liver is a detoxifier, right? It detoxifies all these ammonia. Ammonia is one of the only gases or substances that it can cross the brain barrier and attack our brain. The liver takes our ammonia away from us. That's the beauty of this thing. It saves us, right? And the liver was not functioning whatsoever. And we started to see this happening. We started to see the ammonia was making its way up to her brain, and then it started destroying and killing her brain. That night, my wife went home that night, Lily and I, and I'll never forget this evening. This was just the most terrifying night of anything I've ever experienced in my life. And I sat there with her, and she's screaming. And she's looking at me, and I can tell she's looking at me. She sees me, but her body is not saying that. It's like she's screaming for help for me, and I couldn't do anything to help her. And I was like, man, I just did everything I possibly could. I held her as close as I could. I could do everything. I talked to her. I whispered to her. I did everything I possibly could, and she's screaming out. It was such a horrible night, and she finally goes to sleep. And the whole time, while I'm laying there with her, I'm playing music. I'm playing, this song that's called I Surrender. And it's this, song that I just keep playing over and over and hard. And I'm praying so hard. I don't know, I'm crying. I'm all these things. And I'm just sitting, it's just her and I in the ICU. And then I fall asleep. And I wake up to a doctor tapping me at about 5 a.m. And she's like, Ramone, we have to do something, or Lily is she's not going to make it through the day. We have to do something right now, which means we need to medically induce her and put her in a coma. And, that's scary words, right? Your daughter, Lily is now, 7 years old. She's gone through cancer. This is her fifth fight, right? We have just been through it all, and to have this happening, as many times as I had deterred the thought of death, right? It was as close and as near as I'd ever seen it. It was literally right there. And I was afraid, but man, this is where I instead of trying to express control like I had done with every single instance of everything and just found frustration in it all, this was the point in time where I finally just had surrendered myself, and I gave it all to God. And I looked at the doctor and I said, let's do exactly what needs to be done. We need to save Lily, and we're going to do it. And I was afraid, and all the things, all the fears. This is the last time I'm going to see her this way. It was last week, the last time I'm ever going to see her. I'll ever see her again. All the things. And so I called my wife, and I was like, you need to get here now. She's hysterical. She's crying. She prayed that she was going to be better in the morning, but she wasn't. And I said, we have to induce her. We have to put her in a coma now. And so my wife got there just in time. So the doctors have been doing all these procedures. They've been doing all these things. Everybody loves Lily. Like, this is my daughter. Like, the energy, what she exudes is just such resilience. I mean, it's just so great. And every single person feels it when they're around her. Right. And, so all these people are connected. They're far more connected than just a doctor over a patient that I just met. Right. There is a connection occurred. And so everybody, I could tell that everybody was heightened. The stress was heightened. It was happening. The ICU room is just, they're getting ready. So they're getting to intubate her, do all of the things that they got to do. They had to do surgery to put a dialysis machine on her. They had to do all these things. So everybody's preparing. The whole room is going crazy. And I'm like, you can't start until my wife has to see her. My wife has to hold her hand before this starts, before the next time we see her, My wife finally arrives, literally like minutes later. And they start doing the patient checks and things like that. And I just see the energy in the room is just not good. It just wasn't good. And so I right before we get ready to begin everything, I'm like, can we stop? can everybody just stop? And everyone just kind of looks at me, you know, and I'm like, I want to pray. I want to pray over all of you. I said, I have never done anything like this before in my life. I've never stopped to be that. Never. This is the first time I'd ever found myself doing this. But I needed, in my eyes, in our eyes, we needed God to be in that room right there, because it just wasn't the recipe that we were looking for, right? It wasn't there. So I stopped and I prayed over every single doctor, prayed over my sons, I prayed over my wife, we prayed over Lily, and man, and then, you know, we all said amen, and it was just everybody, like, something changed inside that room at that very moment, and we walked out. We walked out of that room, and they proceeded to do everything they needed to do. The next time when we came back in, you know, hours later, Lily was in a coma, and she had all the tubes, she had all the things that were just traumatic. It's the most traumatic image you can have of a child, right? It was all happening, man. And they had to hook up a dialysis machine, you know, so that's just rotating blood, right? It's taking out, it's detoxifying, doing the liver job. And Lily remained inside this coma for about a month, a little over a month, maybe a month and a half, something like that. But we were there every single day. We prayed every single day. And now I felt like I don't have any control, but you know what I can control are the amount of people that I have praying for my daughter right now. And so this is what I use my social media for. This is the power that I knew that I did have control over. And so I did, and I began to share her story, and I used to tell people the details, and I was sharing like any update that we could get, you know, even though she wasn't awake, there was things still occurring, right? And I didn't need money. I didn't need anything from anybody. I just needed as many people in the world that I knew to pray for my daughter. In my eyes, it was like, lift her up as close to God as we possibly can, so there is nothing left but to heal her and show her a miracle, you know, show the world a miracle. And this is what I relied on. I gave it all. For the first time in my life, man, that I had just truly given every single thing that I am to God. And it's terrifying, man. It's terrifying to do that. It's a terrifying thing to just truly, that song that I had played for her that last night before we went in was I Surrender, was the name of it. And we both fell asleep to this song, you know, and it just, that song just really, that's what's kind of set me into that path of just, this is how it's going to be. And when you're scared, you pray. When you're worried, you pray. When you talk to God, you know, this is what I learned in this entire 3 months that we were there. And then my sons, warriors, man, 11 and 10 years old. These are two boys that were tough before this journey went on. Now are just, I think they're two of the toughest human beings on the planet, you know. And before when Lily went into the coma and I had the boys there with me, we were driving over and I was like, listen, you're going to see Lily, and Lily is going to look like something that you'll never forget for your entire life. You'll remember this day forever. It's scary and it's terrifying and it's going to frighten you. I said, but Lily needs you. Just like Lily has needed you every single day up to this point. We are the reason. We are here. We are helping her. She needs you to whisper to her. She needs you to touch her hands. She needs you to talk to her. That's what needs to happen. Lily can hear you. She may not be awake, but she can hear you. And I said, and I'm not going to make you go right now. I want you to go. You tell me when you think you're ready to go in there and see Lily. And when you're ready, you tell me, and I'll make this happen. But understand that when we get there, Daddy and Mommy are going to be with Lily, and you two are going to be with, you know, they have a child life specialist that takes them and things like that. And I left it at that. And, you know, we proceeded. 15-minute drive later, we're arriving at the hospital, and Ivan and Julian are both in agreement. They're like, Daddy, we want to see Lily. I said, okay, we're going to see Lily then. You and I, all three of us, with Mommy. Now, Mommy, you know, I didn't read her in on this, right? Because she's in there. She didn't need to be, it's not something that needed to necessarily, she needed to stew over, right? And so we go into the room, man, and the boys are right there next to me, and they see her, and it is that immediate response, that same response that Corpsman did when they saw that horrific body. Was this boys see Lily, and they're just like, you know, they start crying, they get upset. But man, it lasted about an hour, and then the boys never left her side the entire time we were there. They held her hand. We did Thanksgiving dinner with her asleep with her little foot sitting right there next to us, and we're all rubbing her foot and reading these tray rats, from the hospital, whatever they gave us. Like Thanksgiving dinner was such a special. I mean, we were all there, and given the circumstances, it was just horrible, right? Like anybody looking out, like this is, oh my God. Like we've told people this, and they're just mind blown about it. But we never left, never gave up, we never stopped believing, we never stopped praying, all of these things. And then it was like, it was like 40 days, something like that, 40, 45 days in. Ivan comes in and he's like, "Hi, Lily," in the morning. And she opens up her eyes to his voice. And I was now, bro, my breath is gone. I'm in tears. Never seen anything like this in my life. It's the first time I'd see her open her eyes in 45 days. It's to my son's voice. It was just the most incredible thing ever, right? Like at that moment in time, life was back in Lily, and I knew it. And it was just a week later, finally they got all these, kind of tubes out of her. Her liver, she did suffer liver failure, acute liver failure, which we are still experiencing, recovery from that. But the beauty of the liver, right, is that it does recover, and we did have to go through some things that created, she went back in the ICU for some bleeding and things. There were a lot of things that still happened from that. And now keep in mind, this is the crazy part. We reversed treatment. So once we realized the cells that she had received to beat the cancer, it was killing her, destroying her. We said, reverse, give her chemo. We want them gone. We're going to deal with cancer, but we got to survive her. So we asked them to stop, and they agreed. They stopped it. And now go to coma, right? About 2 weeks later, they had run a bone marrow biopsy like right before she had left the ICU. And to us, it was just another procedure, like whatever. We know she has cancer still. But we accepted that. Like, we totally accepted that. And they came back in and they're like, "Sit down." They sit us both down, and I'm like, "You're not going to give me bad news." Like,
how much more bad news?
Yeah. Like, what are you going to tell me? And they're like, "The cancer is gone. The cells, when we attempted to destroy the cells with the chemo, not all of the clinical cells were destroyed, and the cells that remained destroyed the cancer. Everything else that was happening were things that were as a result of those cells, but at a much smaller level, those cells were still working, and they still beat the cancer, and the cancer was gone." So we're all sitting here just like dumb, just astounded at what just happened, you know what I mean? And then I'm like, but again, my brain was just like turned right back in. Okay, let's continue to take care of this scenario, this situation, And so we got through. We end up, again, there was some bleeding. There were some serious things that kind of happened since then. But I knew in my mind that Lily was going to live. That all of those thoughts that Lily was going to die, that just got worse and worse and worse to the very top of that mountain of she's not going to make it in this world. She made it. And she is truly a miracle of life. She is every single doctor, before we were left and medical flighted out of Philadelphia back to San Diego, her and I jumped on a private jet plane that's critical care nurses and me and her, and we flew back, and she got admitted in San Diego. But the doctor pulls me down before he sits with me, and he's like, "Ramone, you may not remember me." He's like, "But that night that we put Lily into the coma, every single doctor, when you walked out of the room," he's like, "after you prayed, every single doctor in that room, 100% was almost in agreement that Lily was not going to make it through the day." That's what they all agreed, and that's all they thought. They're like, "Your daughter is an absolute miracle of life, and we are so honored to be a part of this. Like, to see what you did and the efforts that you made. You never gave up. You just believed. Your faith, the testimony of our faith was just tested as it possibly could ever be. It was tested." And he's like, "We are just so grateful and happy, and we are look forward to seeing, the progress that Lily's going to make in her life, And man, I'm like, it was tremendous, it was huge, right? And now we lived like a deployment it was like, to me, it was like a combat deployment, right? And what I tell people, like, I think people that are veterans that are getting out now, like, we're not damaged goods because we went through these things. You know what I think now? I think that all of the deployments and things that I went on were all in preparation for this. What I had to endure with my family, the way I needed to step up as a leader for my family, to be the example, to be humble enough to accept change, to be able to take in faith, right? And to use all of the things that I've been through in the past as strength to get through future harder things. That's what happened. That's what happened in these 3 months. And you know what I did? My family, they were right there with me. You know who I remember the most from my deployments are the ones that were in the mud right next to me. The ones that they say that diamonds are created under pressure, right? Like the strongest bonds in our relationships and our friends are all the ones that we went through the toughest stuff together. And this is how I saw each of these rounds of cancer with my daughter, was that this was another opportunity for my family. I'm going to bring them all in as close as we can. My sons know everything. They are involved in every single piece of this. I've never hid them from anything. They've been everything. And now today, our family is as strong. Lily's home. We were in the hospital for 3.5 months after we got back from Philadelphia. And her liver's recovering very well. She's got a little tube in her belly, but that's not even anything that we're even worried about anymore. But she's going to heal and be all right, you know? And I think about, like, I go back to, you know, where I was before the cancer and where our life was at and how problematic it was and how much it was just filled with. And God brought this to us. He brought cancer to us. And it's what solved, like, it's crazy, but it's what solved all of the problems. My wife and I are as close as we've ever been in our entire life. We go to church every single Sunday. My boys are on top of the world. Lily, she's dancing again. She's doing her thing. She's growing. She's going to be in 2nd grade. She's going to get to go to class. If we get the tubie out, you know, she'll be back in school again. But we just look at all of these things and it's really easy with cancer and with illnesses like that we see in our family, I think, to just give up and just think that the end is the end. And that's all that there is. And many people tell me and ask me and my wife today, like, how do you keep such faith, man? Like, how do you stay so positive in these things, right? And it's just about, like, you know, focusing on these small wins, you know what I mean? But just truly putting your faith in something far greater than ourselves, right? When I went into the Navy and I put my faith into my service to my country, right? I put my efforts into the people next to me. They were coming home. I'm coming home, right? Like, I gave myself to something greater. And that's how I got home. That's how we all got home. And I feel like in this sense, I gave myself, I didn't have a military to give it to, right? It was Christ. It was God that I had to give it to. And I did that. And we won because of it. And Lily, and now it's our job. Now it's my job to share this testimony here. Like, you have no idea how grateful this is such an opportunity for me to share my words with just, you know, anyone that could be listening that is going through something and they just don't know. You know, my wife feels the same way. I feel the same way today. We are sharing this testimony of winning this life that Lily has gone through. That's our responsibility now, is to share this. And yesterday I'm helping people that I meet, that I've met for, you know, a day or 2 days. Somebody else connected me to them and they're going through their journey and they're like, Ramone, how'd you do it? And I'm sitting there sending them a text or I'm calling them or I'm answering them and I'm just giving them a snap, literally like a 30-second snapshot of everything that I've just set up to this point, right? And I'm like, just stay there. Stay in this place of it's going to be, it'll pass and she will heal. And, you know, and then miracles happen every single day. We're surrounded by them. If we don't keep our eyes open, if we're too big on, if we're focused on this big picture, this big looming dark diagnosis and thing, then you know what? That's all you don't see all of the wonderful things that are happening around us each day. The wonderful people that come into our lives. Charity for charity, that meant they are still a part of our lives and they still bring faith to our lives. They bring goodness, they bring happiness, like everybody, like, you know, my journey, coming out my physical journey, right? I lost 50 pounds, right? I'm back on track again. I feel great again. I'm doing all the things. People like, Game Day Marietta, right? Joe and Kevin, right? These dudes, I came to them in a not a good place. And I was like, I need help. I need to find myself again physically, dude. And they helped me get there, right? I mean, they're just incredible people that God you believe and he will answer. He will. He brings things to us. He brings people into our lives. And I feel like I'm thriving now at this point in time in our lives because of the journey. The journey got us to this point, and how we proceeded to get through was always up. It's always up to us how we want to proceed, but the outcome's always known by the way I see it. He has always known the outcome, right? And he just gives us little pieces of bread every single day to say, just take this little piece, man. And it's going to get you to the very end, right? You're going to get all the good things. And that's how I feel today. And then to just kind of, when we came back from Philadelphia, Charity for Charity had a big, huge gala event. And it was their annual event that they do. It's a beautiful banquet, and it's wonderful people that are there, past beneficiaries, family survivors. And I asked Charity, I was like, can I have a few moments to speak? Because I was fresh back from Philadelphia, man. I was only like 2 weeks back, right? And Lily was still in the hospital. My wife was with her. And I was like, I gotta say something. God, I have this calling. I'm a changed person because of this traumatic experience, and I'm stronger, and I need to share this. I have to share this. And she allowed me to get up there on stage and speak to 500 people about the power of prayer and the power of our faith and getting us through these extremely tough times. Like when we're lost, there is an answer, but we just have to literally surrender ourselves and give it all up to find it, and she let me do that. And I got up there to say it. And then, I got down and I was like, oh my gosh, how did that, I'm like, but again, I've never done anything like that. Like that prayer before we went into the surgery, before she went into the coma. Like these things are things that are scary to me kind of, because I've never done anything like that. Right. And so now I'm in front of 500 people and I'm talking about faith. And I was just like, man, this isn't me. And I come down and I'm like sitting in my chair like, oh my, I don't know what to think. And then one person, one by one, they come up to me and they're just like, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for telling me this. Thank you for telling me the hard times, because I'm going through this. And because of what you're going through and what you've been through, I'm going to do the same thing. You know what I mean? But it was these words of encouragement, like just that nervous 20 minutes that I was up there made such a difference. To every single person in the room, because then it's just another person and another person and another person, and they all started walking up to me, and everybody's just like, oh my gosh, like the courage, to them it's like the courage to be able to, public speaking is kind of my thing. I can talk in front of people, like I've done my entire career, right? And I can do it before, and that wasn't the hard part of it. It was the topic in which I was speaking, which was challenging for me, I think, and kind of scary in a sense, but everybody, they all came and they were just like, thank you so much. And that's when I knew it. I knew like this new calling that I have, like this new piece that I have is to just not support people in the way that I've done it in the past. But I think I now have more tools. I have more capability and ability to help more people going through their things. You know what I mean? So working with with Joe, Joe's got a lot of initiatives and things that he's working towards. And maybe I'll have maybe you'll see some future foundations, come down the pipe from our family, or something. But I know that there's we go through these tough things for a reason. And now it's my job to just like I did in the military, the police service, right? You're a chief, you're a fire chief, you're a police chief or whatever, man. Like you're downloading everything you did right and wrong in your career. And then you should be delivering it right back to every single person around you so they don't make the same mistakes, right? Or they can learn how to win, because this is the way that you learned how to win, right? Or don't be a jackass like I was, right? And do it differently. This is how it's the same. It's no different than the military I served in. Now I'm living life going through all of these things. And it's my responsibility now as a leader to myself and to my family is to just download this and give it to other people and sharing it and sharing There are layers. I think I'm pretty sure I could write a book, like a couple different chapters to the whole story of Lily, right? Each round of cancer and the intimate details of what we went through each day in Philadelphia. But the overarching is, kind of what we just talked about here today. You know what I mean? It wasn't easy. It was hard. And one might think like, oh, because I have PTSD, yeah, that shit came out, man. Yeah, it came out hard. I had dreams. I woke up in the middle of the night dreaming of thinking I was in Iraq holding that child, right? But then seeing my daughter, right? Like it was weird how I was connecting the post-traumatic, the stuff from war that I was now connecting to my daughter's cancer diagnosis. And this is what I was experiencing. But I didn't allow it to take over, man. Like it held the space in my brain, but only for a short amount of time before I said, no, you don't get space in my brain today. I'm going to move on. I'm going to think about something positive. Thoughts are not facts. That's what we need to know, right? And we can, it's really fast to catastrophize and make things really bigger than they are in our brains. We can allow it to do that, or we can stop it by challenging these thoughts, right? And challenging these, what we think are facts, but really they're not. And we challenge them with the opposite, right? Every sad thought that I do, I still have them. I'm realistic, man. I still feel anger. I still feel frustration. Like, 'cause I want things to be perfect right now, but they're not. But any negative type feeling that I'm having or feeling, man, just combat that with the opposite and then bring something really happy, or give my children a hug. 'Cause I'm so fortunate to be able to have an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old now that can just fill my life with happiness every single time I hug them, So even if I'm mad about something at work or whatever is going on, it's always a matter of, I look at Lily, I can hold her close and be like, man, this is it. This is the good stuff. You know what I mean? And it was, when she was initially diagnosed, I had a friend, from that first company that I worked for. He was probably prior, I think, Australian Special Forces. He did some high-speed stuff in the Australian military, and now he worked, and he sent me a bracelet. He sent my daughter and I a bracelet, and it said, it was a silver bracelet that I was meant to wear that said, she doesn't fight alone. And then the other one was, fuck cancer, right? And that was the one that, it was a combo, but the bronze one was meant to go to Lily, right? And then I was to wear the, she doesn't fight alone one. And I wore that thing for a long time. And it was one of the Valentine's days. My wife surprised me. It was just awesome. She's like, I got a gift for you. She's like, but you got to go with me, go get it. I was like, okay. We went to get it, and she takes me to a tattoo parlor, and she's like, let's get a Lily tattoo. I think this was in the middle of one of her relapses. She was cancer free, and we're like, heck yeah, Lily Bear Strong is that's our motto, right? Lily Bear Strong. So she went ahead and got that little, on her arm, little dainty little thing, and I was like, well, I ain't getting no dainty little tattoo, you know what I mean? And so I had that bracelet on that evening, and I was like, man, that saying right there is just something so. I didn't put that bracelet down from the moment that he had given it to me. So that's what I went and got, that right there. She doesn't fight alone. Like this is it. You know what I mean? And it's crazy how things happen for us. They happen they happen for us, right? They don't happen to us. They happen for us. And I think I've been able to open my eyes and really see all the amazing people and all the amazing little things that I'm surrounded by every day, and just. My family and I are so grateful, and one, there's a lot of pressure sometimes when people give you a lot of things, like it's people when you go through these illnesses and you go through these pediatric things or family illnesses, people are like, oh, GoFundMe's, and they give you like meal trays and they give you all these things. When you're on the receiving end of something like that, there's a lot of pressure that comes from that, where you feel obligated then to say thank you, right? You feel like, oh my God, how am I ever going to say thank you to these people? I don't have time to, because I have to be here. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do that and that. And it creates a lot. It's hard when you're going through these things. And so the first year of kind of people supporting us, which is wonderful, I was like, man, I'm going to say thank you eventually, and it was about a year and a half later, I finally said thank you to a few people here and there that they gave us something. And in the end, they were just like, man, I never needed you to come tell me thank you. And this is what I learned. This is what I tell parents today and people going through things people are helping us, right? They're helping us because maybe that's their calling, right? That's their way they don't have any other way to show support or touch the community that we're touching, right? And so they give things to us and they help us. And it's not out of getting something back in return, but we put this in our own brains. I put this in my own brain. My wife put this in. Now all the other parents that I know that are going through, their children are battling cancer right now, right? They put this in their brains that there's some obligation. There isn't. There isn't. The only thing is it help, use it to help your family get through what it is you're going through. And that's what they want. I mean, we've been so fortunate to receive so many people. And over the course of 5 years, Lily's 8 years old and she's 5-time cancer survivor. That's wild. That's a wild story. And the amount of, it's the only thing that I can hope and pray that I do in my life is give everything back and more to other people that we receive. You know what I mean? Like I want to support as many families as I can. This is why there's going to probably be some Lily Bear found something's coming down the pipe, right? Like something, I don't know what's going to come down, but we're doing something right now. In Philadelphia, they had when Lily was inpatient, they had this little cart that was, that walked around one day. My wife was really wanting a candy bar, but you don't ever want to leave your daughter's side because she's in there, right? So you just, so parents will not eat. That's the truth. They don't eat, they don't sleep because they can't leave their child's side. And my wife was feeling this right then and there. And this little cart, it was like a little wheeled cart and it had a whole bunch of snacks on it. And it just happened to show up at the door one day. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And she just got a full-size candy bar, right? And it was tremendous for her. She loved it. Well, now fast forward to us here in San Diego, we're back. And my wife, she was like, let's create this for the floor, but with Lily's spin on it. Lily's pink, she's pink girly, everything you can imagine. And, she bought this tool chest, this pink tool chest that's on wheels, and we put it all together and we got some decals, some Lily Bear decals, and we now have been filling this thing up with all these treats. And every single Friday at 2 p.m. on the hematology cancer floor, the pediatric floor, that cart is wheeled around to every single room, and every single room gets to pick. The moms, the dads, the kids get to pick snacks and treats and toys out of this little cart. And now it's like it's one of the things that every single patient on that floor looks forward to is Lily Bear's Fun Treat Friday cart.
That's cool.
And we fill it up every single week. I'm going to fill this thing forever. It's never going to end. We're going to fill this cart up forever, and it's going to remain there as long as it possibly can. And this is just that simple little thing, though. Remember when you were Halloween and you're like, you go to the house that gives full-size candy bars?
Brother, to close this out.
Yeah.
And I hate doing this to you.
Don't. No, this has been an unbelievable opportunity, and I could probably take it off forever if you asked me to. But you have no idea how grateful I am here to be with you today, to give me the ability to speak and talk about, my story and kind of what we've been through. And brother,
you've been through a crucible that no parent should ever have to go through. And I commend you and your wife for not only surviving that, but also getting your own relationship back in order. But because of my time constraints, unfortunately today, I need to bring this to an end.
It's okay.
So I'm gonna let you have that one last thing that I always ask. Any one last piece of advice that you want to make sure somebody hears from you as we wrap this episode up?
For the veterans, for our first responders, for our people that go through the toughest challenges every single day, they give so much every single day. I just encourage them to just think that we're damaged because we went through those things. I want them to know that there is strength in every single one of those experiences that we've been through throughout our careers. The trauma of it all, there's something there, and it has made us stronger. It's made you stronger. It is, if you just step back and you look, you can get through anything because of all those traumas that we experience. We truly can. We can. But it just requires us to step back, look, and say, that wasn't bad for me. This is good for me. And I'm going to be able to get through this now because of the tough things that I went through before, rather than think I'm ill-equipped and I'm not ready to get through this next challenge. Because I think people tend to think that. They think that, I can't get through this because of something that I went through in the past. Rather, flip it around. Turn around and say, because I went through that, I now can go through this. You know?
I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing your story.
I
wish you and I wish your family all the best going forward.
Yes, absolutely, brother. Thank you very much again. Thank you for everything.
Thank you again.
All right.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.